Chapter 24. The sun entered the room through the open window. The small breeze gently tickled Kiba's face as he turned over on his side to put his back to the wind. His mind was awake, but he refused to open his eyes. He still wanted to stay in bed for as long as possible. He moved his feet around the bed and noticed a distinct lack of a certain kunoichi in his bed. He moved his feet around a little more and found Akamaru was still curled into a ball. Finally he gave in. He opened his eyes and sat up in his bed. He stretched and looked over at the clock to the side of the bed. 9:42 am. Okay, so I guess I didn't sleep as late as I thought. He ran his hand over his friend's head as Akamaru woke himself up as well. Kiba got out of bed and figured Sakura was downstairs already. It didn't help she was a light sleeper because she was usually the only one who heard the baby wake up and had to take care of him. She could wake up 4 times in the middle of the night and he would never notice, much less wake up from it unless she woke him up by shaking him to help her. Luckily it's only happened a few times. After a quick shower, wearing only his towel on his waist, he walked over to his closet and stepped inside. Flashback, come in, said Tsunade. Kiba and Akamaru stepped into the Hokage's office and shut the door behind them. As a usual setup, Tsunade sat in her chair with her fingers linked and Shizen stood by her side. You wanted to see us, Lady Tsunade? How's the baby? Kiba was taken off guard by the change in topic, but he paid no mind to it. He's good. Sakura says he looks nothing like her, but I told her he'd probably inherit her personality. I see. Tsunade smiled. That's good. Tell Sakura when she's ready to reassume her training my door is still open to her. No problem. Kiba. Yeah. Tsunade stood up and walked over to a cabinet. She knelt down and opened the bottom one, pulling out a small plastic bag. This was your father's. Kiba immediately took the bag and opened it. It was a Jonin vest. Nothing out of the ordinary. He looked up from the bag. But I thought my father's body was never recovered? It wasn't. He left this vest as a memento for you. When Fugaku Uchiha and the military police force conducted an investigation at their home, they found his vest in your room. They put it here as evidence, but it was something we never were able to use to help us find him. I figured now you would want it. You never told me this, Dad. But maybe it was better this way? Kiba? She asked. Oh. Sorry. Thank you, Lady Hokage. He took the vest out and invested it. It had some wear on it, but nothing too bad at all. He could definitely smell his father on it. It was still very strong despite such a long time being off of a body. He examined the rest of it only to come to a stop at the vest's left shoulder blade pad. It was like someone wrote into the vest. He looked carefully and saw the words "and justice for all" edged into the vest. Thanks again, he said. He got up and left the mansion, keeping the vest in his bag. He really didn't know if he would wear it or keep it as something to remember his father by, despite meeting him already. End flashback, and there he was staring right at the vest. Of course he had a fully suited shinobi outfit already, so he decided to take that instead and leave his father's vest in the back of the closet. He never really wore the full outfit before. Sure, when he was made a chunin he wore the vest for a short amount of time, but it wasn't the full outfit. This time it was now that he was a jonin. He looked at himself in the mirror. It was different. He wasn't really sure what to think yet. He thought it made him look a lot older, as if having a kid didn't already do that for him yet. He walked downstairs with Akamaru by his side to find Sakura cooking. Normally any other ninja who knew what was happening, specifically Naruto, would be throwing a fit. He really didn't find her cooking too awful. He believed the stories that she was quite bad at it, but being someone who lived with her, he came to find it had taken a vast improvement. The smell was definitely convincing her cooking had improved. She turned around, giving a small smile to her boyfriend before kissing him good morning. At the table sat Kayasato in a high chair. He had made a mess of his food as expected from a 1-year-old. The small table that came with the chair was covered with slow-warming milk and a few Cheerios. Aw man, look what you did, pal. Kiba said, grabbing a paper towel and wiping the table off. No. Pouted the baby. No what? He asked confused. He's still hungry probably, said Sakura as she picked up a pan and began shoveling eggs onto a plate. Scrambled right? Oh. Yeah, thanks. He stepped over and picked his plate up. Large portion of eggs, 2 pieces of toast and a few links of sausage. Kiba turned and sat his plate down, walking over to the cabinet and opening scooping out 2 cups of dog food his mother helped him make specifically for Inuzuka Nin dogs. He placed the food into the bowl and set it down as Akamaru began eating. Kiba then sitting himself and began eating. You look so different with that uniform now, Sakura said, finally sitting down to join him with a plate similar to his. He shrugged his shoulders. I figured it was time I started wearing the uniform. Can't go around wearing all black forever. He chuckled at his last sentence. Yeah, that's true. It looks good on you. Thanks. It feels different. Like you're actually growing up? She giggled. He really did look much older. Full shinobi attire and only 18. Clothing really did a lot for him. As for Sakura, she still looked the same. Luckily she was able to help burn the fat away with her chakra, and since she breastfed within his first year, the weight came off in a couple of months. She didn't mind staying home and watching the baby because she knew someone had to. She just wanted to get back to missions eventually. She felt so behind after a year already. Heh. Yeah, maybe a little bit. He then glanced over at Kayasato, who was feeding a cup of applesauce into his mouth with his already sticky hands. But I think he's the one who did it. She nodded. I think you have a point there. The next few minutes were quiet as the small family finished their food. Sakura took the plates and put them in the sink. She came back and cleaned off the baby's face before picking him up. He looks just like you know, she said as she held him. I'm starting to see it more and more now. Well, you better get ready. You need to meet with some of the other new jonin, right? He nodded. Yeah. I want to get there early in case there's a big wait for a table. Who all is going? I heard only a few of us made jonin so far. He nodded. Besides me, just Shino and obviously Shikamaru, since Temari was the one who invited us. I don't know who else is coming. He stood up and put his chair into the table. I'll be home in a few hours probably. It's a small get-together more than anything else, so I shouldn't be gone too long. Sakura shuffled her feet as she looked around and then down at the ground. Anything else? He looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, is there anything else happening today? His expression remained. Not that I know of. Anyway, I need to get going. He walked up to her and kissed her before waving to his son. See you guys later. And with that, Kiba and Akamaru were out the door. Sakura made her way upstairs with a now sleeping Kayasato in her arms. She walked into their room and sat on her side of the bed. She opened a small drawer and pulled out a small calendar. She opened the calendar and glanced down at a date she had written down with a red pen. Anniversary, said the small entry. And he forgot. She sadly thought to herself. He had just become so bland at times. Aside from his treat from the other day at making dinner, he really didn't go out of his way to do anything special since they had started dating. She knew he cared, but how much did he really? He forgot their anniversary. What was next? Her birthday, her son's birthday? Did she have to disappear from the house to get him to notice her? I just need to get out, that's all. She gently scooped her boy up and made her way downstairs and out the door to her destination. Scene change, you're sure it won't be too much trouble? Sakura asked. Oh no trouble at all, said Tsume as she held the sleeping baby in her arms. Don't rush back. I'm sure you've been cooped up for quite some time in the house. Sakura sighed. She was definitely right about that. Tsume. Can I talk to you about Kiba? She nodded as she gave her full attention. Of course, Sakura. He's been not distant, but he just hasn't really done anything special lately. Not just for me, but for the baby too. I mean, he always comes home when he says he will. I know he works hard because whenever Hinata comes by she always tells me about how Shino and Kiba did this or Shino and Kiba did that. It's just Tsume placed her fingers on top of Sakura's lips. It's all right. I know what you mean. But then Sakura, I know Kiba very well. I'm his mother after all. If there's one thing I know is that when he puts his mind to something he isn't quite familiar with yet, he puts all of his attention to it. He hasn't been a jonin for very long. And he's not used to working by himself on his new missions, relying on only Akamaru. I don't know about you, but that seems like a big step for one person to handle at such a young age. She sighed but smiled as his traits resembled an all too familiar person in her mind. He's just like his father. She nodded, shocked in her mind. Kiba only mentioned his father slightly when she asked him about it. He left a lot of things out, if not almost everything. She didn't press him for information. She figured the trauma of dying once already probably gave him his fair share of scarring, but she knew she had to get him to tell her eventually. So he's not? Tsume shook her head. My son is arrogant, thick-headed, jumps to conclusions too quickly, eats way too much, and sometimes leaves the light on, but he's a good boy. And he's definitely without a doubt in my mind faithful. Sakura didn't seem completely convinced on her outer appearance, so Tsume decided to reassure her some more. Sakura. Inazukas are not, well, to put it to you simply, we don't have other partners, we'll call it. You mean you only have sex with one person in your lifetime? She nodded. When Kiba's father died I was approached by others, don't get me wrong, and they were all very handsome. But the blood of our clan bounds us to our mate. It can never be broken. I could never love anyone like I loved his father. And Kiba is the same way, as is his sister if and when she finds her mate. Their blood is bonded? That's so strange, poor Tsume. Sakura said. Can I ask you something? Of course, dear. What was the name of Kiba's father? Tsume looked down at the baby and back up at Sakura, giving a sad smile. His name was Kayasato. Said her face. It made sense now. He named their son after his father after he met him. If that was the case, his meeting with his father must have been nothing short of good. She made a mental note to herself to ask him about it later. Tsume, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. Oh no, you didn't. She smiled. I've already mourned his death years ago. He was a good man and I'll always love him. It's just heartwarming knowing Kiba is slowly becoming more and more like him. The good things anyway. I see. She looked down at her son, still sound asleep despite the conversation. I won't be out for too long. I'll stop by tonight if that's okay? She nodded. That would be fine. Take your time. I will. She stood up and kissed her son's forehead. Be good for Grandma, okay? She whispered before leaving the house. Scene change. Man, why is everything here so expensive? Shikamaru complained. The four jonin were still flipping through their menus reluctantly. As congratulations for Shikamaru, Shino and Kiba all being promoted to jonin at the same time, Temari insisted on treating them to a nice restaurant. She had invited the rest of the ninjas in their year along as well, including Lee and Tenten. Unfortunately, only Naruto and Hinata were able to attend due to all the others being busy on missions and training elsewhere. It was without a doubt a good-sized party and would without a doubt be a large bill to foot. Where's Sakura Kiba? Shino asked. Hinata sat right by him. Normally she would be holding onto his arm or his hand, but Shino had told her it would be best to keep that shut away when they were around Naruto. Ironically, she didn't feel awkward being around Naruto anymore. They had come to an understanding. They were still good friends and they had each moved on to different people, though Naruto kept it a secret mostly because he hadn't met this person yet. Sakura told him she would set him up on a blind date when she had the time. It was a good move for both of them, but perhaps Shino still felt some sense of paranoia she could go head over heels for him again. Oh. She's watching the baby right now, so she couldn't make it. Are you sure that was it? Shino asked. Well, yeah, why else wouldn't she be able to make it? Shino wrote down something on a napkin and handed it to him from across the table. When he opened it, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. You told me today was the day you two had became a couple. Wouldn't that make it your anniversary today? Shit. Kiba yelled, causing an immediate awkward silence throughout the entire restaurant. He slowly turned his head to both sides to notice everyone staring at him. Luckily, a man in the back got the attention of everyone else. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 3:00 p.m. We will begin our late afternoon jazz session. If you have any requests for the band, please leave a note at the front of the stage. Thank you. Perfect timing, huh? Shikamaru sheepishly said as Kiba sat down. Yeah, totally perfect timing, said Kiba. That couldn't have been good news, said Naruto sitting next to him. What did that note say anyway? Kiba quickly crumbled the napkin and put it in his pocket. Nothing at all. Just an inside joke Shino and I have. Heh. Yep. Man, Shino sure is a comedian when he wants to be right. Shino looked at him with a completely emotionless face. See, there he is now. His look remained unfazed. Anyway. Temari finally interrupted. Sakura couldn't find someone to watch the baby? Oh no, she just... Well, actually He looked over at Shino, who just shook his head. She was just busy. Oh. Well, because I got Kankuro to watch Aki for us. I'm sure he wouldn't have minded taking care of Kayasato. Aki? Wait a minute, I forgot about their kid too. Why doesn't Shikamaru ever talk about this kind of thing? Must be a Nara thing. If you ask me, I think Kankuro is taking his job as a new uncle more seriously than anything else, said Shikamaru. He thinks doing funny puppet shows for the baby still gets training in. I think that's just his way of saying he wants to be a part of our little girl's life, but that's not a bad thing in my book. The music continued to flow in the background. Kiba took a particular liking to it. So much so he thought he had heard the music before, but he figured they were just doing cover songs. Their pianist was particularly familiar. An older-looking fellow. But he couldn't quite put his finger on who he was. Their meal dragged on. Food and drinks were ordered and it seemed to have been going by smoothly. Catching up was always fun. Kiba and Naruto teased Shikamaru about never telling anyone about their daughter and Temari's constant annoyance at how her husband failed to mention stuff to his friends. So tell me, honey, said Temari with an obviously annoyed tone. Do you tell your friends anything about your family? Or is this a new thing to them? I don't not tell them anything, Temari, they just don't ask. Shikamaru shrugged. She huffed, obviously bothered by it. Hinata and Naruto giggled at their little argument, which seemed to be common around the village. They were obviously meant for each other, but Shikamaru could never get a moment's peace sometimes without him not doing something or Temari wanting him to do this. Sometimes I wonder why I got married, it's such a drag sometimes, Shikamaru thought. As the ninjas finished their meal, Kiba failed to notice the music had stopped. He quickly got out of his seat and walked up to the stage to talk to the pianist, whom he still could not put a finger on as to who he was. Be right back, guys. Hi, sir? The man who was packing up his sheet music into a small bag turned around. He was of average height and had a light brownish hair color. He wore a professional suit, black jacket and slacks with a red button-up shirt underneath with a black tie. The interesting thing were his sunglasses. Purple frames. Yes, how can I help you? He said. He had a different way of speaking. He sounded like Tamamaru, but not really. He couldn't tell where he was from, but he was obviously not from around this area or country, more than likely. His accent seemed thinner, much easier to understand to him. Well, go on then, if you have something to say, go on and say it, said the man as he resumed his packing. I listened to what you guys played. I really liked it, and I was wondering if you're looking to book, you'll need to let us know ahead of time. We're actually heading off tomorrow for a wedding, we are, he said back. Sir, I have a huge unreasonable request that I should probably not even ask, and then don't ask it. He turned around. I'm just playing. Go on then, what is it? I can't remember who you are, but I know I've seen your face before. I have a girlfriend. Our anniversary is today and I forgot. I guess I'm sort of pulling a fast one on you, but sock. I get what you mean. He said. Wait, you know what I'm? You forgot your love's anniversary and you want to make it up to her by asking me to play a piece. That sound about right? Kiba scratched the back of his head with a big grin on his face. Arf. I think I get what the dog's saying, said the man. All right, here's my rate. For every hour I don't have a lot of money. The man crossed his arms. Well, I'm afraid I can't do much for you then. He finally picked his bag up and began walking before Kiba stopped him by jumping in front of him. Wait. Wait, please. Look, mate, I can't go around doing free shows just because some guy forgets his love's anniversary. That's not my problem, he said, walking past him. Kiba quickly followed him outside, ruffling through his pockets and pulling out all the money he had. Wait. He ran up to him again. This is all I have on me. The man looked at his money. He wasn't familiar with the exchange rate, but he could tell he wasn't nearly enough. Kiba had a desperate look on his face. As if he were telling this man his entire life story with a mere glance of his eyes. The man sighed. All right. Tell me what you want. What song, what time, and the location of the venue? Kiba smiled. Really? All right. Okay, it's going to be in the fields right outside the village. Don't worry, I'll show you where it is. And I only need one song. You see, scene change, girls liked shopping, right? By themselves maybe not so much. She felt that jewelry stores popped up only today and would be gone tomorrow because she had not seen so many before. Especially on today, their anniversary. Ugh. That man? She thought. She went from being sad to just plain upset. She thought this day out to herself, since all of her friends were busy, would be nice. Some fresh air, some walking around, some time to herself. Except all she could think about was Kiba and how she wanted to whack him over the head with the frying pan she used to cook his breakfast that morning. 2 years. She said out loud to herself, not noticing the shadow approaching behind her. How can you forget? It's not like we just started going out. I don't even make a big deal out of the monthly ones. But once a year isn't hard to remember. Sakura? What? Sakura shot around, agitated to see Hinata staring at her with a now fearful expression. Oh. She quickly changed her face. I'm so sorry, Hinata. I'm just never mind. What's up? It's okay. She put her index fingers together. Shino and I were wondering if you would like to join us and the others. We're all hanging out over in the fields, just reminiscing and stuff. She blinked. That was rather forward of her. Then again, ever since her and Shino started seeing each other, she noticed she wasn't nearly as afraid. Looks like Shino is a much more encouraging person than he appears to be. Sure, Hinata. She said, trying to keep her mind off of Kiba. I think that would be great. Scene change, Sakura didn't remember the walk being as long as it was. Then again, they had hardly spoken at all. And she was beginning to wonder how long this little shindig they were doing was going to last. It was already dusk and she knew she had to go pick up Kayasato in a few hours. Hinata? Is everything okay? She asked. Yes, everything's fine. She nervously said. Are you sure? She figured she'd start guessing. Is everything okay with you and Shino? Why, yes. There's no problems. It's just that, What? Kiba's there with them. Sakura folded her arms. Oh, really? So I guess while he's there partying with his friends, he doesn't expect me to show up? She stepped in front of Hinata, who had stopped at this point. Let's go, Hinata. But when she turned around, Hinata was gone. Completely vanished. Hinata? She called out loud. But nothing. Maybe she went to go get something. She decided to continue on her own. More than likely the small light in the distance was them and her soon-to-be doomed boyfriend. Scene change. As she approached the light, she could see a small stage that was set up. On it was a tall lamp, beneath it was a man sitting at the bench of the piano playing a particular riff over and over. She couldn't tell if he was practicing or if he was waiting for something. And he looked so familiar. Who was he? She got closer to the pianist, who turned his head and noticed her. Hello there, love. You must be the one he was telling me about. Her face was confused. The one? What do you mean? His face looked behind her and she turned around. When she turned completely, she saw Kiba standing right in front of her. She stepped back from being startled. Hey, he said. Hey, she replied. Kiba, did you? Meet him, he said. Wasn't easy, had to pull some strings, get this place cleared out, not to mention he was interrupted by her arms wrapping around his neck as she hugged him. You remembered, thank you. Sakura. He gently pushed her off him and faced her. I didn't remember. I completely forgot and I'm sorry. I'm a pretty lousy boyfriend, you don't have to remind me. The man took that as his cue. Playing his measure one more time, he finally began the song, clearing his throat before singing the lyrics. There's a calm surrender to the rush of day when the heat of the rolling world can be turned away. Kiba, it's okay. No, Sakura, it was no excuse for me to be like this. I've been distant, I haven't meant to, but I have. Things with my father becoming a jonin, I don't even know when it all fell through. I've just had too much on my mind, and I guess I thought me and Akamaru could handle all of it on our own. An enchanted moment, and it sees me through. It's enough for this restless warrior just to be with you, Kiba. She touched his cheek with her hand. The heated feeling came rushing back to him right when they were just becoming close. Where did that come from? I see you all the time now carrying something you think only you can carry. All I do is watch and it tears me up inside because I know that you're hurting. Sakura, he said, pulling her towards him, locking them into a long kiss. And can you feel the love tonight? It is where we airy. It's enough for this wide-eyed wanderer that we got this far, and can you feel the love tonight, how it's laid to rest? It's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best they finally let go. Sakura spoke up first. But I understand now. You don't tell me because you don't want to. You're just not ready, and I know how that is. No, Sakura, that's not true. Not anymore. My father, he told me about how he died. He asked me to tell him my life story, so I told him mine. After I asked him for his, I just couldn't bring myself to say it because the image of it happening hurt so much. Does it still hurt? She asked. There's a time for everyone if they only learn that the twisting kaleidoscope moves us all in turn. There's a rhyme and reason to the wild outdoors when the heart of this star-crossed voyager beats in time with yours. Kiba gave a quiet swallow as he started shaking. I can do this. I know I can. Kiba? She asked. No, he said as he slowly began lowering himself. He brought his left leg to a kneel as his right one remained on its foot. He took her left hand into his and looked up at her. Not anymore. Sakura's heart started thudding in her chest like it had never done this before. She realized what was going on now. His stance, the music, everything. Was he really going to? Sakura Haruna, with you I can do anything. You give me so much power, so much safety, and so much love. You've done so much for me, and you continue to be there for me when sometimes others don't know things are bothering me. You get me and you love me. You really love me. Just the way I love you. He finally took his chance and reached his free hand into his pocket to bring out a small black case. I'm not afraid anymore, Sakura. With you, only you, it all goes away. I know now more than ever I don't have to carry the knowledge and loss of my father alone anymore. He then proceeded to open the small black box. Sakura covered her mouth up as it opened at what she saw. She knew it. But she still couldn't believe what was happening right in front of her. A platinum ring, 3 oval stones, her birthstone. The larger stone in the middle with the 2 smaller ones to the side. I don't have to do anything alone anymore. He then looked up at her. Sakura, will you marry me? Her hands dropped to her sides as her mouth stayed open. He actually asked her. She knew it was coming. In the back of her head she knew it was coming. She couldn't say anything. No, she knew what to say. But she physically couldn't bring herself to do it. Damn it. Why is this so hard? She finally gathered up enough strength as a hot stream of tears began flowing from her eyes to the ground. She took her ring finger and slid it into the ring as it fitted itself snug around her finger. She could see Kiba smile now, and by condition she was now smiling too. Kiba, she took his hands and raised him gently up to face her. Nothing would make me happier than to become Mrs. Sakura Inuzuka. Then does that, yes? She giggled as she pulled her now fiancé into her arms as they shared their first kiss together as bride and groom-to-be. And can you feel the love tonight? It is where we airy, it's enough for this wide-eyed wanderer that we got this far, and can you feel the love tonight, how it's laid to rest? It's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best. As their kiss finally broke, they turned to face the pianist still playing away. As he finished the last words of the chorus, he smiled over to Kiba. He mouthed the words one more time to him before playing his piece one more time. Kiba wrapped his arm around Sakura as they stood side by side and watched the man play his final measure together. And can you feel the love tonight? It is where we airy, it's enough for this wide-eyed wanderer that we got this far, and can you feel the love tonight, how it's laid to rest? It's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best. It's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best. The man stood up as he cheerily bowed at the edge of the stage, receiving the 2 claps from the only 2 people watching his performance. Kiba let go of his fiancé and walked up to him as they shook hands. Thank you so much for doing this. Don't worry about it, mate. Pretty thing you have there. Don't let her go. He then let go and began walking back towards the village. Hey, wait, sir. What about the piano? He looked over at it. It was huge, easily worth thousands. Oh, that thing? Keep it. Wedding gift from me. Also be sure to look inside the piano. I left something for you there. Hold on. He said. What's your name? The man didn't respond as he picked his hand up and waved as he disappeared up the trail back towards the village. Kiba sat down at the piano and opened up the top like he was told. Inside he found a note. Kiba, today I found out it's not just about money. Music is something we all need to enjoy and appreciate, and not take advantage of our gifts and try to milk money for it. Seeing your determination made me see how moving and inspiring it truly is. Thank you and good luck. Reginald Kenneth Dwight, aka Sir Elton John. Kiba sat there for a few minutes. Where had he heard that name before? He decided it didn't matter. More importantly, what was he going to do with a new piano that he had just left? Sakura came and sat next to him on the bench. Well, at least now if one of us decides to play this thing, we'll be able to practice. He smiled. That's true. They both simply sat on the bench and stared down at the keys of the piano. So it was late, the day was long, the baby was still at Tsume's house, but it was needed. This was needed. Now more than ever, nothing had made Kiba feel more like a man than right now. She was his world and he to her was just as much. Chapter 25. It was a good thing Tsume never sold any of the cribs or baby items she had when she had her children. It made taking care of her grandchildren that much easier. She had about half expected Sakura to not come back, thinking it was good for them to be alone. Hopefully everything had worked itself out. The baby remained quiet as it drank away at the bottle in the crib, looking up at the same baby mobile Kiba had grown up staring at when he was his age, though she wasn't sure if he could remember that far back. Kuramaru walked into the room to join his master as he watched her stare at her grandson. It was nice to see her spirits lifted. He of all beings knew what she had been through. He sniffed the air once more as he sat next to his master. Scene change, he was fast. He drew closer every second. He couldn't believe how easy it was to breach through the walls and go completely unnoticed as he locked onto where she was. Taking her in broad daylight would be foolish. Discretion, the art of heavy negotiation, would have to suffice in this case. As he leaped onto the roof of the Inuzuka home, he listened in to hear the sounds of a baby and a creaking chair almost directly underneath him. Looks like the intel was right, he thought. She did have his child. This could be easier than I thought. He quickly sliced a hole into the roof, dropping down through onto the wooden floor of the living room. Completely empty, but he felt chakra nearby. Definitely upstairs. He quickly ran towards the staircase and up, jumping to the walls as he rushed across the wall towards the room he had felt the signatures emit from. Scene change, he's here. I know. She said. The moment she finished, the unsheathing of a katana was heard and a long blade had already been flying down towards Tsume's head. Without looking, she caught the blade between her two fingers, never looking away from the baby. It makes sense now why you came here first. She said. You know you couldn't take her yourself. You came here thinking you would snatch up the baby and use him as bait. She then turned her view to the man wielding the sword. It was him without a doubt. The gray high-collared short-sleeved shirt, the black pants, the blue bottom robe with the purple knot as a belt. And the Sharingan. Why now? She asked. After some research and some old files from the Leaf, I found the perfect blood type I need to mix in with mine. What? What are you saying? Tsume demanded, jumping away from him and in front of the crib. Kuramaru took to her side as his master drew a kunai. I, Sasuke Uchiha, am restoring the Uchiha clan. And there is no better catalyst for my embargo than the girl who used to grovel at my feet when we were children. You're a little late, traitor. She is one of us now. She took a stance. You picked the wrong person to fight Inuzuka. And you picked the wrong room to die in. She flipped her kunai back as her and Kuramaru after-imaged. Scene change, maybe it would have been nice to inform Kiba's mother that she was going to be out the whole night. Well, more or less out for most of the night, and came home to try and move a piano into the house in the middle of the night. They weren't sure what they were going to do with it, so they just found a place for it in the living room. Of course, the happier-than-ever couple wasn't downstairs. Sakura stretched as she sat up in their bed, covering her still naked self in the sheet. She completely forgot that they fell asleep like rocks right after they were finished. She leaned over Kiba, who was still sleeping, and rested her head on his. You awake? She whispered. Kiba groaned as he stuffed his face into his pillow. The mind was awake, but as usual the eyes weren't quite ready yet. Come on, silly, we need to pick the baby up from your mother's house. He groaned louder, like a kid who didn't want to get up to go to school, as he rolled over onto his face completely. She sighed and got up herself. She noticed Akamaru wasn't with them and checked Kiba's side of the bed. Nothing. She got dressed and walked downstairs to see the Nin dog staring at the door, his tail pointed straight across as he seemed in deep focus to what was on the other side of the door. Akamaru? Are you okay? He gave a low growl, not paying any attention to what she was saying to him. She decided now would be a good time to wake up Kiba. Hey! She said, shaking him awake after getting upstairs to their room. Akamaru's doing something. Oh. Yeah, he just needs to go out here, boy. He lazily replied, still face first in the pillow. Get up. She then resorted to one of the cruelest things you could do to a sleeping man: turn the lights on. Hey! What the hell? Shouted Kiba as he shielded his eyes from the bright light. Kiba, Akamaru's doing something I've never seen him do before. Can you go check on him? She asked. Yeah, okay. He yawned, getting up and putting on his clothes that had been tossed around the bedroom the night before. Finally heading downstairs, he saw Akamaru still in the same position as when Sakura found him. He stopped behind him and closed his eyes as he slowly inhaled the air. Kiba? She asked. He didn't respond. He was focusing on something. Suddenly his eyes shot open. MOM. Scene change, we need to tell the Hokage, said Sakura, who was barely keeping up with Kiba speeding down the road. The 5 miles that separated the two houses felt much longer than usual. No. There's no time. I need to check it out first before we do anything. And if that smell is what I think it is, no. It can't be. Finally he skidded past where his old house used to be. He stopped and took in another sniff. Okay, I smell her. He looked at Sakura. You can go get the Hokage while I figure out what's going on. If not, then I need you to help me cover an exit. Exit? Kiba, will you please tell me what's going on? Someone's here and they broke into the house. What about Kayasato? Can you smell him? Her panic finally began catching up with her. Not only was her soon-to-be-in-law inside, her son was as well. Sakura, said Kiba in a stern voice. The scent is strongest upstairs. Go around the back and meet me in the living room. When we do, go through the downstairs and I'll check up. Kiba, I'm scared. What's in there? Can't you tell me? He shook his head. Frankly, I'm following my nose completely on this one. I have no idea what is inside other than the smell of, well, let's just hurry up and get inside. She nodded her head. After he briefly ran through the plans once more, Kiba stood at the front door by himself. He insisted Akamaru went with Sakura to keep her safe. He knew she was scared, but he had a feeling he couldn't handle this whole thing by himself. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key to the old house he had grown up in. He slowly inserted the key to the keyhole and turned it, slowly opening the door and stepping in. The inside was a mess. Broken glass, the couches were torn apart and plates and full shelves were scattered across the house. This wasn't an invasion, someone was after Mom. There was definitely a fight, I can still smell her, but it's scattered. He drew a kunai out as he heard a sudden movement, but calmed as he saw Sakura step into the living room with him, placing her hands over her mouth at the sight. There was obviously a fight here, but it was unsure to tell who was the victor just by the sight alone. Kiba looked at her, nudging his head to the right. She nodded as her and Akamaru took to the room downstairs and began searching Kiba, heading upstairs. As he walked up the staircase, the railing was completely taken off and a long line of the wall was ripped right off. Almost as if some kind of sword or current had burned its way into the wall. He opened the first room where the scent was strongest. He stepped inside and found it to be empty. On the ground he saw small dried patches of blood along the ground and on the bars of the crib. He examined the inside of the crib and found nothing. From the looks of it, the blood came from outside the crib, so he assumed the baby was at least okay. But this whole thing was still bothering him. The house was deathly still, but the scent of blood and sweat littered the entire compound. Then his nose went off the fritz. A new smell he was all too familiar with. Sakura's. And fear. Scene change, Tsume. Sakura and Akamaru quickly ran to the mother of the man she loved. She was unconscious and tied up to a chair. Barbed wire wrapped tightly around her, her head dropped down to her chest. She was clearly injured, but after checking her vitals quickly, Sakura could tell she wasn't dead. To the side of the chair was Kuramaru with his legs tied together. The dog was fully awake but was conserving his energy as if he were preparing to break out prior to them showing up. Sakura, you need to leave. Tsume said groggily. What? She replied. Tsume, where is Kayasato? Behind you, pup, said Kuramaru. The door to the room she entered in had shut behind her. A heavy drop of cold sweat rolled down her back as the air in the room dropped an easy 20 degrees to her. The echoes of her son's crying was the only thing that brought her back to reality as she slowly turned around to see her son in the arms of the last person she would ever expect to see again. Well, Sakura. You certainly have been busy lately. Her face was petrified. Words wanted to escape. Screams wanted to be shouted, but she couldn't find power to fuel any action. Not while this nightmare stood in front of her. Not again. Sasuke? His face was as emotionless as ever. Had I not seen the birthmarks, I would have never been able to filter down the possibilities of who to come after. But he slowly stroked the face of a wailing Kayasato. I should thank Kiba for bearing this child. It only proves my theory even further. Did you do this? She asked, not even trying to hide her fear. It was too much, all of her emotions came flying back. Why? It had been 5 years since he left the village. She was engaged to Kiba, hell, she had a kid with him. How could this be happening? Why did she feel so weak? The Haruno clan have a certain ability that occurs only within certain members that carry a particular blood type. In place of a Kekii Genkai is something even greater, a blood catalyst. A catalyst? Your blood type is O. Members females to be precise carry the ability to guarantee a child to be granted the Kekii Genkai of the father. He looked down at the baby he was holding. This child, for example, will be guaranteed the Kekii Genkai of the Inuzuka clan, a true waste. Is that right? Sasuke closed his eyes as he opened them, activating his Sharingan. With his free hand he quickly unsheathed his sword and swung at a 180, slicing into an afterimage of Kiba as the faint picture faded away. I always was faster, Sasuke, said Kiba behind him again and in front of Sakura. Sasuke turned around and backed up a couple of steps. Kiba, it's been a while. I was okay with that, he replied. I suggest you hand my son back to me, release my mother, her companion, and I may let you live long enough to explain yourself. Sasuke scoffed. You are of no concern to me. You're completely beneath me, Kiba. On a bedrock where I am mountains above you. It shows. I only made a circle around you without you touching me, Mr. Rookie to beat. I'm restoring the Uchiha clan. And I'm going to use Sakura to begin repopulation. Yeah. I don't think we see eye to eye on that one. He snapped back. Arf. That full shinobi attire only shows how much of a pawn you are to the Leaf. How easy you are to fall for their lies. When I rebuild my clan, the village will know true justice for their actions. When? I don't think you've heard a word I said, and that makes me a little sad. Kiba said, his cockiness beginning to get the better of him. You say I'm beneath you and you're so much higher up than I am. But I've done more than train since you betrayed this village, Sasuke. I have a family, I have something of my own to protect. That gives me a hell of a lot more power than you'll ever have. No. Sasuke said. He closed his eyes, opening them to reveal something Kiba nor Sakura had never seen before. His eyes were completely black in the background. In place of his iris were 3 red intersecting ellipses. It doesn't. Sakura. Kiba said. Get out of here. Leave Sasuke to me. What? She said. There's no way Kiba can beat him. Not like this. He's holding Kayasato in his arms, he has us cornered. What can we do? She thought to herself as Kiba took a step forward. Kiba. Akamaru. He looked over at his companion, who was already ready to fight before he even said anything. We need to get Kayasato away from Sasuke. You know what we gotta do, right? Arf. Alright, good. Fool. I've already won. If you pursue this, I'll erase you and your companion from existence. I don't quit. Kiba said, rushing at Sasuke with full speed and a kunai drawn. When I have people to protect. Kiba. Stop. Shouted Sakura, but it was too late. Sasuke closed his eyes again, opening them and gaining a focus on Kiba. Tsukuyumi. Kiba noticed as the world around him changed completely. Sasuke was still there, but everything was gone. The house, Sakura, his mom, even Akamaru and Kayasato, who was in Sasuke's arms, were completely gone. He could hear Sakura's shout for his name quietly echoing into the sky as he slowly adapted to his new surroundings. Where the hell are we? He growled. We? He smirked. You're inside my Tsukuyami. This world is mine and you were trapped the moment you looked into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kiba looked around. The sky was red, the clouds were black and the trees around them were white. They were in an open area of where they were, but it still didn't take the tingle out of his back. Everyone was gone. Genjutsu, I think Kurenai-sensei told me about this when Itachi and Kisame invaded a while back. I gotta be on my toes. Just need to convince myself it's a genjutsu and I'll be alright. Now then, said Sasuke. I'll take you down quickly. We'll see about that. Kiba yelled as he charged to Sasuke. Just as his drawn kunai was about to sink into his chest, he was pulled away. When he finally stopped, he was planted against a tree, no restraints, nothing. Just mere force keeping him attached to the bark. What the hell is this? He asked out loud. He then felt the hot piercing of a blade enter his stomach. He cringed loudly as he looked down to see a sword entering his stomach wielded by Sasuke. You fucking pussy! Using Genjutsu to fight me!" he weakly said. His taunt fell on deaf ears as several other swords found ways into his skin. It felt worse than when he was killed by pain simply because the pain was everywhere. He closed his eyes hoping it would help alleviate the pain, but upon opening them it was made even worse. The entire open area was filled with identical copies of Sasuke, all with drawn swords inching closer towards him. "It's just a Genjutsu. Genjutsu. I need to calm the hell down." It was such a real feeling though. It was agonizing. Sasuke was never this powerful. What happened? How did this happen? Was he really this powerless to stand against him? And just as quickly as it began, he suddenly woke up. Everything was back to normal. Or so it seemed. He slowly picked himself up but was helped up along the way. There in the same room he had just fallen in was Kakashi. "Kakashi-sensei?" he weakly said. He looked at himself. No wounds, no cuts, nothing. He was totally fine. That Genjutsu left his mind heavy though he could feel it. "Slow down, Kiba." He slowly guided him to standing up. Suddenly Kiba's strength returned as he frantically turned around. "Sakura." He turned again to the side, then to his next. "Kakashi-sensei, where is everyone?" he desperately asked. "Your mother Kuramaru and Akamaru are perfectly fine. Sakura, however, is gone." "Sasuke," he growled. "I know. Umbu informed me of his exit of the village. He was definitely in a rush as he took no precaution in covering his leave. Sakura was spotted with him on his back, and I'm assuming since I did not see your son with you or your mother, he has him too." Kiba fell back down and sat there looking down at the ground. "They're gone. I can't believe I let them go. Sasuke was right fucking there. Why couldn't I stop him?" Scene change, several hours later, and after a long discussion with the Hokage about the situation at hand, a final decision was about to be made about what was going to be done. "You do understand the risks of a pursuit, don't you, Kiba? You remember the first time you went after Sasuke?" she asked. "I'm not going off to rescue Sasuke. I'm going to bring my fiancé and my son home." Tsunade sighed, but she smiled. It tore her heart to see Sakura gone, especially kidnapped for that matter. But regardless of what happened, she knew there was only one person who could bring her back. And that man was standing right in front of her. "You also understand I cannot send you on this mission alone? You will need a team." He nodded. "I'll take all the help I can get." "Good, then we won't have to waste any time." "Waste time? What do you mean?" he asked. "Come in," she said. The door opened, and when Kiba turned around he saw three figures he was never happier to see standing in front of him. And nothing gave him more hope than to see three thumbs up in his general direction. Lee, Guy, and Naruto. Though Lee and Guy kept a more calm face, Naruto was bursting with excitement. "Lady Tsunade, you picked them?" On the contrary, Sun Guy spoke up. "We insisted. Kiba, as far as I'm concerned, you're an honorary member of Team Guy and a great student of mine. I couldn't let myself see you off without accompanying you on this youthful experience. Kiba. For almost 2 years you and I have sparred and trained together magnificently. You are a remarkable ninja in every sense of the word, and for that I will do everything I can to ensure that we will bring Sakura back." Lee ended with a smile and a nod as he crossed his arms. "Yeah," Naruto said, standing right in front of Kiba now. "Listen, Sakura is close to me. Like a sister. And Sasuke, well, when Grandma told me about Sasuke coming back and taking her, I had to come with you. No questions asked. Arf. No doubt, boy." "What did he say?" Naruto asked. "He said we have some of the biggest goofs coming along with us for the ride. But some of the best." Kiba turned around and faced Tsunade with a hopeful smile on his face. "Let's do this." Scene change. "Ah, come on, Naruto, what is it?" Kiba asked, annoyed, and haven't even left the village yet. This whole time Naruto had been at Kiba's house, he kept mentioning to him how he had a cool trick he wanted to teach him. Kiba tried to ignore it as he packed up really quick, but it was starting to bother him. Even more so that as soon as he gave in and asked about it, Naruto said he wasn't sure he was ready for it. He tossed his vest off and entered the closet of his bedroom. He knew what he was going to do. He walked to the back of it and grabbed his father's vest. He examined it to make sure it was the same one he had received. The edgings were unmistakable. "Dad, watch me." He put on the vest. A perfect fit. He grabbed a few more essentials and placed them into the pockets of his vest and headed downstairs where Akamaru and Naruto were waiting for him. "You finally finished?" Naruto asked. "Come on. Let's go. Will you shut it? We're going. I just needed to grab something." The two ninja exited the house into the light of day. Kiba locked the door but left the key under a bush next to the door. He had told his mom to come by and pick it up once she was out of the hospital. She took a minor set of injuries, much to his surprise. He was glad his mom could still hold her own even against someone like Sasuke. He knew she didn't let herself be beaten so easily. "So are you going to tell me about that trick?" Kiba asked again. Naruto sighed. "Honestly, Kiba? I'm not sure you can handle it." "Oh, give me a break. I can handle anything you throw at me. I'm the Jonin here, Mr. Genin." "Fine. Later though. It's going to take a while." Finally they made their way to the main gate where Lee and Guy had been waiting for them. "Glad you boys decided to show up," Guy said with enthusiasm. Now then, since our old pal Sasuke didn't cover his tracks very well when he left, Umbu was able to get a lead on to where he is heading. "Where's he heading?" Naruto asked. "He's heading towards the Land of Lightning. Or at least in that general direction. Why, I'm not sure. But that was our last report from about an hour ago." "Wait," Kiba said. "Sasuke worked with Orochimaru for a while. Wouldn't he have access to some of his hideouts? Maybe he could be in one closer to the Land of Lightning? Worth a shot," Naruto said. He quickly ran ahead of the group and out of the gate. "Yeah. Let's go." And started running ahead of the group, which hadn't moved since he started running. Naruto turned back around to see the other three walking slowly towards him. He felt a sweat drop form as he realized he let his eagerness get the best of him again. Naruto, maybe you should stick with us," Guy said as he took point. "Aw, come on you guys. Look how slow we're going." Naruto complained, barely out of the village. "Kiba, you of all people should be storming out like a bat out of hell." "I want to. But I know that's just the dumb thing to do. I won't be able to save anyone if I go running off like a banshee after her." The Jinchuriki huffed as he fell in line next to Kiba. Their journey was definitely going to be long and there was no telling what would happen. But the father of one knew that if it came down to it, he would do whatever it took to bring his mate and son home. At the top of the main gate, a certain pair of color-faded eyes followed the group of five as they slowly got further and further away from the village. The wind tickled his fur as he stayed sitting. "Do you think they can find Sasuke?" asked Hayashi, who had just appeared behind Tamamaru, who turned around to see him. "No. Never think, lad. Only no." His view of the four ninja finally faded out of his still failing eyesight. "Aikyo, if only you could see your boy now." Chapter 26. The four ninja and dog jumped across trees with great finesse as they kept their progress up to catch Sasuke. Unknown to them, however, as they passed one particular tree, a certain half-black, half-white sentinel emerged from camouflage to observe them as they gained distance from him. That didn't take long. They're already on the way after him. Are you surprised? We need to inform Sasuke at once. Zetsu took the opportunity to dash off in a different direction from the ninja team, trying to catch Sasuke before the team did. What a stroke of good luck. They even brought the 9 tails for us. Wasn't that nice of them? Don't get ahead of yourself. We have to beat the one who fought Kisame first. He is the most powerful of the group. Ah yes. But they're all pretty strong now. Indeed. We should hurry. Scene change. Hey Kiba, said Naruto. There's some stuff on your vest. Kiba looked confused for a second. Oh. No, it's not like a bug or anything. This was my dad's. He wrote on that side of the vest. He replied. Guy-sensei. What's in the land of lightning that would make Sasuke want to head over there so badly? Can't tell ya, son. I don't know much myself. There's only a few things he could be after: a hideout or the 8 Tails Jinchuriki. Oh yeah. Killer Bee. Naruto exclaimed. Do you think he's after him again? I thought he couldn't capture him the first time? Not likely. Lee interrupted. If my guess were as good as anyone else's, Sasuke will be using the remoteness of the village hidden in the clouds along with the obviousness of a hideout being in a village to cover his tracks. Wouldn't the Raikage know about that though? Kiba asked. You'd surely have to know about something like that happening, wouldn't you? The Raikage is very powerful, very perceptive. But even he can't see everything. I have a feeling Lee may be onto something, said Guy. The sooner we get to the hidden cloud village the better. Scene change. Being the brother of the Raikage had its perks. Discounts at restaurants, a decent reputation, basically you were an upper-class citizen by default. And if you were a ninja it was even better. But it was always nice to get a little time alone. And Killer Bee figured on top of the Hokage mansion at his home village was perfect for getting some peace and quiet. That was until a Cloud Umbu ninja dropped onto the roof. Lord Killer Bee. That chakra is returning. We put out a team to watch it like you asked. It's making its way back to the village now. Killer Bee stood up adjusting his sunglasses. Then it's time to greet this unknown Moda in the name of my brother. Yeah. Not so fast, Bee. The 8 Tails turned around to see the Umbu member accompanied by the Raikage himself dressed in formal wear with his arms crossed. The Hokage sent me word not too long ago. He's being pursued by a team. If by chance that same signature is the one that has been coming in and out for the past few months is going to do the same, then we have no need to raise alarm. But I don't like it either. But the Hokage is right. And this person has a hostage. It's a Leaf issue, not ours. We need to stay out of this one, brother. Scene change. Sakura woke up to the sounds of beeps and typing in the background. Her eyes opened but it was black. She tried to turn over but found herself tied to the bed. Severely tucked into the bed to the point where she could barely even move her head. Well, look who's awake, said a voice. Sakura turned her head to see the light reflect off of a pair of all too familiar glasses as the figure stood up and turned the light on the room. I was afraid you wouldn't wake up. Makes sense, someone like you would be working for Sasuke Kabuto. Now. I'm just a man who's trying to get by. Sasuke offers me quite a bit for my services and in return I help him with his research. It's no different than working with Lord Orochimaru, only a different staff leader. He smiled. Why does he want me so much? What is this about my blood being so important to him? The Harunos have a very unique ability. I'm not sure if Sasuke told you about this, but your blood is actually quite rich. Rich how? Your blood is a type of catalyst. It perfectly replicates the chromosomes of the father. In a sense, the abilities the father carried, more specifically the Kekkai Genkai of his clan, will be directly copied into the child. It's a 100% success rate, which is why he suddenly appeared when he did. That's why Sasuke wants to rebuild the Uchiha clan so much and use me to begin. Right? That's essentially the idea, yes. But it doesn't stop there. The females who are born from the female Haruno carry a sub of the blood catalyst as well. The success rate is merely 50%, and with each generation it begins to cut itself down. But at that point there would have been enough new Uchiha to steadily repopulate without the need of a catalyst. So that's all I am then, just sex? Kabuto stood up and shrugged his shoulders. You have to understand, it's only science. Sakura's eagerness grew as she realized her son wasn't with her. Where's my son? The baby? He's all right and alive. He's being kept under observation like with you. He's a baby. Barely one. What could he possibly do? Not what he could do what his father could. His father? Even with all my certainty it's a possibility the chromatic reproduction could have a lapse and falter. We merely took a blood sample of your son just to be sure. He's fine, I assure you. You bastard. You're experimenting on my own flesh and blood? She screamed at him, still unable to move from how tight the bed kept her down. Kabuto shook his finger. The greatest scientific discoveries were made only through experimenting. Imagine all the dying clans that could be brought back. The beauty of restoration. You're sick. She snapped. The door opened and Sasuke stepped into the room. Still carrying the same emotionless face as before, he stood behind Kabuto. It's done, he said. Fantastic. I will begin extraction at once then. And with that Kabuto turned and exited the room, leaving Sasuke and Sakura in the room alone. The locking of the door sent a shiver down her spine as Sasuke sat at the side of the bed next to her. He took a hand and slowly moved it across her cheek. You've grown so much, he said. He moved his hands towards the blanket that kept her tied into the bed and released them, exposing her body. Inside and out. He stroked her hair, slowly moving his hand down her stomach. Sakura took the opportunity and slammed a fist right into Sasuke's face as it knocked him back. She got up and dashed towards the door as quickly as she could. She had no idea where the exit was, but she just knew she had to leave, find the baby, and get out. She kicked the door down and ran right. It looked just like the hideout Orochimaru had when her Naruto Sai and Yamato had gone to when looking for Sasuke. Ironic how she's now running from him in a place where she was at one point looking for him. She took her first right after that. After the next two turns came, she turned left then right once more before coming to a dead end of black stone. She desperately looked around to see if the wall had a secret area to hide, but nothing. Then the burn of electricity planted her to the wall of the rocks. She couldn't move, only feel the searing of electricity burn into her skin as the force of it turned her around. She was pinned, forced to watch Sasuke come closer and closer to her. His left hand held the electricity that kept her pinned to the wall. His lightning element had become so proficient he could use it freely with one hand to grab onto things. Sakura, that wasn't the smart thing to do, he said as he approached her, standing inches from her body now. Let me go. I'm not going to give you anything. But you will. He smirked. This first son shall be my avenger. You will help me rebuild my clan and you will restore us to glory. The lightning strengthened as she screamed out, wishing it would go away. Wishing Kiba was there to help her. Where are you? Was all she could think of as the pain kept going. Finally Sasuke stopped, but Sakura remained pinned due to the force of his chakra. He came within inches of her face, caressing her cheek. And you will be broken. His electricity then surged from both of his hands as he stepped back to observe her former teammate struggle to break free in agonizing pain as her shouts were heard throughout the hideout. The art of breaking the human mind had begun. Scene change, the team didn't stop very often. But when they did, it was for the entire day to build strength back. Naruto and especially Kiba was very hesitant with complying, but knew it would do them no good to go after Sasuke at half strength at best. And luckily for them there was a festival in session. Guy went alone to find a hotel for the evening while the other three ventured through the festivity to find something to do. I wonder what there is to do here. All these stands are crowded, Lee pointed out. Naruto thought. His eyes made their way over to a dart stand. And the target of the darts, water balloons. There we go, he proclaimed. Come on guys. I know exactly what we're gonna do. Scene change, in the main chamber Sasuke sat meditating with his sword laying in his lap. The stillness of the room ended as Zetsu came walking slowly behind him. What is it? He said, his eyes still closed. Might Guy is heading in our direction. He's assembled a team. You've gotten sloppy, Sasuke. No, he said. I allowed it to happen. I need to see for myself the extent of this project. The blood catalyst? I see. So it's in that girl. As soon as Kabuto brings us our first experiment, we'll see if the blood extraction was correct. If it works, then we can work on clan reproduction. Ooh. What has Kabuto got in store for who we're going to use first? I am also eager to know. However, if Kabuto is going to use the jutsu I am thinking of, then I may already know. All you need to do are your jobs. They will find us eventually. We just need to make sure we're ready. As soon as we are, we'll kill them and make our push to the leaf. Of course, Sasuke. We will leave you now. Zetsu then made his way from Sasuke as the young Uchiha remained meditating. Scene change, Kabuto finished a formation of hand signs as the wooden coffin slowly rose from the ground. He opened the casket and chuckled at the figure he was looking at. Good morning. We have quite a bit of work to do. He then took a syringe and filled it with blood from a small case beside him. He approached the figure and injected it with the blood through its neck. Now we simply wait and see if the blood sample we took from Sakura matches with Sasuke's. He patted the shoulder of the figure in front of him. As he took a seal and put his hand into the back of the figure's head, it seeped into his head, giving Kabuto full control of him. Your work has only just begun. Chapter 27 Sasuke. Kabuto said as he entered the room. Sasuke was still sitting meditating when Zetsu had previously visited him. What is it, Kabuto? He said, opening his eyes to acknowledge him. The blood transfer was a success. Sakura's blood will work. I see. Where is he? At that moment a tall figure entered the room. It was concealed by a dark brown cloak covering its face and ended just above its feet, which were covered in bandages. The arms were covered in the same, assuming the entire body was covered with bandages as well. The figure knelt next to Kabuto. Is this him? Sasuke asked. Yes. I made sure it was a success. Show me. You show it to me. Sasuke ordered. The hooded figure looked up at Sasuke. In the blackness of its hood, its eyes lightened up in a bright red, a black circle in the center with 3 tomo in each eye. The Sharingan. So it was a success, said Sasuke. He walked past the 2 men and made his way towards the main hallway. Both of you come with me. We need to prepare. Especially you. He hinted to the cloaked figure as they followed Sasuke. Scene change, I did it. Kiba exclaimed. The noise woke Naruto up as he slowly rose from his mat in the hotel room. He yawned and looked over at Kiba, who was sitting down with his legs crossed and his hand out. Naruto just closed his eyes and rolled back over and fell back to sleep. Just a dream, he said, half awake. What? This isn't a dream, wake up, Kiba said, tackling Naruto's sleeping body as he woke him up. Hey! Get off me, Kiba. Well, get up. You forget we're already in the land of lightning? Oh yeah. Naruto immediately shot up. Let's go. Scene change, downstairs the 2 ninja met up with Lee and Guy, who were waiting in the lobby ready to head out. Glad you 2 decided to wake up and grace us with your presence, Guy said. We're going to see the rakeage. The rakeage? Naruto said. Why do we gotta go do that? We're in their territory. If something is going on, we need to inform the head of the village in case this problem seeps out into the city. I want to say I have faith in you all, but we must be as careful as possible and take all the necessary precautions. Perfectly said, Guy-sensei. I couldn't have said it better myself. Lee praised his sense. Guy responded with a typical large grin, show of teeth, and an ever so familiar ping came from his pearly whites. Kiba face palmed himself. You'd think after all this time I would be used to it? Nope. I don't think anyone could get this used to it. Alright, we're only about 30 minutes away from the hidden cloud, so let's get moving, Guy said. And with that the team was off. Scene change, the knock at the door got the rakeage's attention. He put his pen down and looked up to the door, then looking to the right. Go ahead and check Darui. Right, boss, he said. The Cloud Ninja opened the door and stepped out to see the 4 ninja and the dog right in front of him as he had expected. Thank you for coming on time. Please, he's waiting for you. He then reopened the door and stepped back in. Boss. The Leaf Ninja are here. Send them in, said A as he stood up and walked to the front of his desk. Guy entered the room first and the others dispersed behind him. Might Guy. Lord Rakeage. Thank you for meeting with us, said Guy as he bowed. It is for the safety of my village as well. Now then, the Hokage told me there was an Umbu team that had been keeping track of this ninja. And you tracked him to here? That's right. We have reason to believe he had a hideout within this area. Maybe even within the village itself. I see. He glanced over at the other 3 ninjas and the dog. This is your team? Absolutely. I wouldn't go in without them, he replied. You are not my own, so I will not stop you. But I will tell you this: the chakra signatures emitting from around the area is powerful. They are not concealing themselves for a reason. They want to be found. Be mindful. The Rakeage then moved back to the desk and took his seat. If the fighting is spilled into the city, your village will cover cost for repair as well as any additional for any ninja I may lose in the process. Is that clear? No problem at all. Guy smiled. We'll be back before you know it. Oh, one more thing. Do you perhaps know the most general direction we could possibly go in? The Rakeage fell out of his chair at the ridiculousness of the question. He sat back up and cleared his throat while adjusting his hat. The southeastern gate gives the strongest trail. I suggest you start there. We have sent Umbu units that have not returned from that area, and I was thinking of going myself until we received word of your arrival. All right, team, you heard him. We're off. Guy and the rest of the team bowed to the Rakeage as they made their way out of the mansion and headed towards the trail they were directed to. Kiba's eagerness kept growing every second they were still in the village. He could smell something wrong. He knew he could smell Sasuke. Barely, but he knew he was out there. And so was Sakura and his son. Scene change, Kabuto was running numbers as the cloaked figure he had revived stood there with numerous wires coming from his cloak. Everything seems to look fine. The blood catalyst works. Sasuke stood by the cloaked figure as he watched Kabuto working. How do we know this one won't kill over like the other ones? Oh, there's no need to worry, Sasuke. I ran yours and Sakura's blood type together before I injected him. The copy was a complete success. Then he possesses my abilities as well? And the Kunoichi's chakra control along with the other abilities he learned before he died. He's quite a gifted individual. He may even be more powerful than you, Sasuke. Sasuke scoffed as he looked at the figure, his cloak completely covering any trace of his face. All he could hear was a heavy breathing. His face was completely covered in the bandages that had concealed his arms and legs save his eyes. I'm not too fond of babysitting, Sasuke. Are we going to do something about the child? Kayasato was soundly asleep in a small baby bed that looked like it came from a hospital. A small cotton blanket was all he had to cover him, but the room wasn't very warm or too cold, so he was fairly quiet until he wanted to eat something. Kabuto gave him only enough for him to keep quiet. If they lost the baby, he figured there would be no reason to hold Sakura there since she could try and break out instead of staying for the safety of her son. Sasuke walked up to the baby, staring down at it. A waste of Sakura's blood. This child will grow up to be nothing but a beast. Nothing more. Sasuke took his hand and unsheathed his sword, raising it up above the child. I will terminate it. There is no reason to keep it. I will break Sakura's will and she will stay with me willingly. As Sasuke brought the sword down, his hand was suddenly stopped. Shocked, he looked to his right to see the cloaked figure holding his arm, breathing heavily as he kept his arm perfectly still. Kabuto. Sasuke said. You claim to have control over this man? He is hard to control. Kabuto replied, removing his attention from the computer and focusing on the standoff between Sasuke and the figure. Both were intensely staring into each other's eyes, both Sharingans active. All the readouts are done. Let's go. Kabuto said. As he left, the cloaked figure released Sasuke's hand, who sheathed his sword and walked off. The man glanced down at the baby for a moment before taking to Kabuto's side and leaving. Scene change. How long has it been? Days? Weeks? There was no way to tell time where Sakura was. No clocks, all the light was a candle. Her burns from when Sasuke electrocuted her had healed at this point. Luckily, since there was nothing to do but sleep, she was normally at a full supply of chakra. She sat at the bed, kicking her feet side to side, wanting to get out, at least know her baby was okay. If nothing else, she wanted him to make it out of this. And then the door opened. Sasuke stepped in and locked it behind him. Sakura gripped the sheets as she observed him. But something this time seemed different. He looked hungry. The blood mix was a success, he said as he slowly approached her. Sakura sat up on the bed and slowly backed to the wall the bed was put against. Then you're here for another sample? Sasuke joined her on the bed, leaning himself closer to her face. I won't need blood. But I will take a sample, he whispered as his hand moved up her leg, moving towards her waist. She gasped as she grabbed his hand and moved it off of her. Sasuke, please. He didn't listen. Both of his hands moved around her body like an anaconda encasing its next victim. She was paralyzed in fear. All her chakra she had wanted to use to bash his skull and was gone, empty, dry, nowhere to be found. Her lips quivered as he looked into her eyes. Now. He brushed his lips against her cheek. Don't make too much noise. We wouldn't want anyone to listen in on us. Her fear acted out of instinct as she kicked him off of her, curling herself into a ball as she watched him stand back up and regain his composure. Sasuke said nothing as he released a flow of his Chidori across the room, encasing Sakura in it. The Kunoichi could do nothing but grip her arms around her knees tighter as his cries got louder but went just as easily unnoticed. Finally it stopped. When she looked up, Sasuke was there. He grabbed her chin and forced his tongue into hers, shocking her as it went to the back of her mouth. She did the only thing she could do in that situation and clamped down, causing Sasuke to growl at the pain as he pulled his tongue out. He looked at it, nothing was missing, but she had broken the skin. This time he didn't bother wasting his chakra on her. He backhanded her as she fell to the side of the bed, hearing her slightly sobbing at the pain and disposition she was in. If you do not give me what I want, he said as he crawled on top of her, unzipping about an inch of her vest, I will force you to watch me kill your son. Limb by limb. And then I will kill you. But not after you bear my son. And not before I carve into every pressure point in your body. He took his face to her ear and whispered to her, I will cut off everything except your ability to feel pain. She was quiet. All she did was sniff and try and hold back her tears. Where was Kiba? Where was anyone? Why was she here by herself, and why was no one able to get her out of this? Trapped like a rat against her will of the man who she used to love, now about to rape her. Sasuke, I'm begging you. She cried but was rejected as Sasuke punched her, sending her face to the side of the bed again as she sobbed heavily as she could feel the discomfort, the pain, the unwanting of his manhood as it pierced into her like a knife to an open wound. She would attempt to squirm, but Sasuke was too strong at this point. He had too much control at this point, and with her tired state from a lack of food, all she could do is helplessly fight as he continued to violate her. Her faint cries to stop echoed into the hallways. Close by, the cloaked figure stood as he heard the cries and mixed moans and emotions as the bed creaked from heavy activity. He tilted his head down and walked away from the hallway where the door laid. There was nothing he could do. It was too late. Sasuke tied his belt back together and positioned his sword back correctly. He sighed to himself with a sense of victory. Step 1 of his plan for rebuilding the Uchiha clan had begun. The seed had been planted, and now all that was left was to deal with the coming intruders. He looked back at Sakura. She was curled into a fetal position facing the wall as she cried to herself, ashamed at what had just happened. She couldn't move, only replay the moments again and again and again as she wished her mind could just be wiped. I told you I will break you. He exited the room and closed the door behind him. Kabuto was waiting for him along with his cloaked assistant at his side. They're here, he said. I see, said Sasuke as he looked over at the cloaked man. Take him. Of course, said Kabuto, who looked over to his lackey. Let's go. I have a feeling you will quite enjoy this fight. To which the man merely breathed heavily, saying nothing as he had been since he was brought back several days ago. Scene change, Kiba froze in his tracks. He felt something, or rather he smelt something. Someone maybe. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew he had to get to this hideout soon. And luckily this scent only made him realize how much closer they were. Hey Kiba, what's wrong? Naruto asked as he noticed Kiba's sudden stop. We need to hurry, Kiba said. Arf. I smell it too, boy. Guy thought out loud. In a split second he had taken a kunai and tossed it behind him, shooting towards a suspecting ninja who deflected it. The others turned to where Guy had thrown his weapon. As the leader focused on the man standing on top of the branches, he immediately knew who he was. Well, maybe not his name exactly, but his tall build, blue skin and shark-like appearance gave it away all too well. You he. I hope it won't take you forever to remember my name like last time, Green Beast. Kisame, Naruto proclaimed. Everyone in the group took a stance as they were ready for a fight. Oh dear. You misunderstand, you see. I'm unfortunately not out for a fight right now. Sasuke assured me I would have my time later. You three, however. He pointed to Naruto, Kiba and Akamaru. You three may pass. The two twins stay here with me, and if you try to follow, well, I'll just kill you both. They were silent for a moment. Everyone but Kiba had seen what Kisame could do. He was not a pushover by any means, and by all accounts he was practically a tailed beast without a tail. Go, Guy said. Lee and I can handle him. Guy-sensei, are you sure? Kiba asked. He fixed his gaze on Kisame, completely focusing. Absolutely. We will catch up with you three soon, Lee said. He then turned to Kiba. Kiba, please do me a favor. Sure man, what is it? Get Sakura back. He nodded. Don't worry. I plan on it. The three then quickly ran off away from the two ninja who were in a lockdown stare against Kisame. They slowly made their way out of the forest, like setting into a more rocky region. The plateau had an upward angle. Kiba, following his nose at this point, took the road up, which led them to an even plain. At the other side was a large boulder which had a large steel door welded to it. It was an obvious hideout, but so far away it was easy to get careless and forget. They heard clapping. Akamaru barked once as they looked to the left side of the boulder. Slowly Kabuto made his way from the side of the boulder, his slow clapping continuing as he stopped in front of the boulder, ceasing his clapping at that point. Congratulations, you three. Looks like you finally found us. He folded his arms. You've done quite a bit of growing, Naruto. And you, Kiba, you look just like him. Kabuto. Naruto growled, stepping forward. Where the hell is Sakura, Kabuto? And where's my son? Kiba demanded. You'll be happy to know your little bundle of joy is safe and sound for the moment. Sakura, however, she's feeling a bit under the weather. Motherfucker. Kiba yelled. I swear to God, if you or Sasuke touched her, I'll skin you bastards alive. Kabuto chuckled. Interesting. This will certainly be the perfect time to test the performance of our latest experiment. Experiment? Kiba asked. What are you talking about, Kabuto? Where's Sasuke? Naruto said. Sakura's blood catalyst was a success. A total breakthrough. After I mixed hers and Sasuke's together, I injected a subject with the finished project. The results were monumental. What do you mean? Naruto said. A synthetic Sharingan. What? He said, shocked. Kiba looked just as worried as well. You two look a bit confused, so I'll explain. Sakura's blood type, specifically the Haruno clan's blood type, is exceptionally fertile year-round. Females with type O completely fulfill this unique ability, or in this case are the blood catalyst. Giving birth to a child will guarantee them the Kekei Genkai of the father should he possess one. You, for example, Kiba. Your son has an exact match in chromosomes for abilities as you do. He took a few steps forward. By combining Sakura's blood with Sasuke's, we were able to recreate the Sharingan within a host. And we could replicate the Rinnegan, the Byakugan, even nature affinity. This guy's off his rocker, Naruto. Yeah, I'll say. Our latest experiment was a complete success. His change in his chakra build shows he not only recreated the Sharingan but his body had adjusted to use it properly, unlike Kakashi Hatake who could not properly use it within his body. He is, however, a work in progress. I don't care what he is, Kiba said, pulling a kunai out as he and Akamaru rushed towards Kabuto. You give them back to me. Naruto quickly followed behind him trying to catch up, but Kiba was determined. Just then the light of day became darker. Or rather shadier. Kiba and Naruto looked up to see a long cloak extend over their view of the sun as he landed in between them, kneeling down. His brown hood covered his face but his arms and legs were heavily bandaged. This is the experiment? But he smells like. Kiba had no time to think as the cloaked man immediately attacked. His reflexes so quick, so smooth. He quickly began a full circle swing, tripping Kiba, and while performing his 360 extended his leg up, kicking Naruto straight in his stomach, winding him and knocking him back. He backflipped to behind Kiba and slammed his elbow into his stomach, creating a small mess of rock as the ground crumbled beneath it. Akamaru attempted to bite down onto the man, but he extended his arms and began to spin himself. 8 trigrams palm rotation. The muffled voice said as it knocked Akamaru away towards Naruto. The jutsu ended and Kabuto stepped to the side of his experiment, placing a hand on its shoulder. Not bad for hot off the press, he said. Then again, who better? Kiba's stomach was definitely feeling it. This guy knew how to land a punch. He didn't even have time to react. He was too fast. Much faster than he was. He looked up to see Kabuto and the man staring down at him. And inside his hood he could see it. He could feel it. The Sharingan. Chapter 28. Kiba slowly rose to his feet, holding his stomach. Naruto and Akamaru joined him as they stared at Kabuto's minion, who had proven to be no lightweight with his impressive display of taijutsu. Kiba, who is that guy? Naruto asked. Kiba said nothing, he let his nose do the talking. It was a powerful mix of smells. Hard to distinguish. Kiba? Naruto asked, concerned. Kabuto chuckled. Your friend has a right to be afraid. After numerously failed experiments, I had finally created the ultimate fighter. With Sakura's blood catalyst, I could inject specific abilities into anyone I choose. Every nature affinity, every Kekei Genkai would be at my fingertips. He placed his hand on the shoulder of the cloaked man. I can create the ultimate army of warriors. And it all started with this one. So that's what this is all about? Naruto said, his anger getting higher. You kidnapped Sakura, their son, and you experimented on them like a couple of rats? All in the name of science, child. He said. Sasuke is set on restoring the Uchiha clan. With Sakura's blood, it will be a simple matter of waiting 9 months to allow population to flourish. He fixed his glasses. But why stop there? Why have children when we can create anyone we choose? Anyone who wants to be a wielder of the Sharingan or possess any sort of nature affinity will be able to take it for themselves. The perfect fighting force. This isn't just about the clan. You're in this for your own selfish reasons. Kiba said. You'll help Sasuke, but not before you use his blood to breed an army of Sharingan puppets like this one. We all have our own motives, Kiba. Kabuto replied. Mine is but a simple one. And I cannot let you interfere when I have come so far. Naruto was insulted Kabuto was speaking like this. To use humans like this to just breed armies of synthetic Uchiha. When would it stop? Could it be stopped? Kabuto jumped back on top of the boulder that was the entrance to the hideout. I'll tell you what. He fixed his glasses again. Entertain me. test out my latest creation, and if you do well enough I'll let you in to say hi to Sasuke. We're not some show you asshole. Kiba snapped. Soon as we kick this guy's ass you best believe we'll be knocking down the door to get Sasuke. Kabuto smirked as the cloaked man made a quick combination of hand signs. He lowered his right hand to the ground as it began to formulate a surge of electricity gathering in his hand. What the? Naruto said. That's Sasuke's Chidori. The beauty of my experiment is not only its capability of copying the Kekkai Genkai, it can also replicate any and every ability they have known. Sakura's chakra control her immense strength and her knowledgeable medical jutsu. His own jutsu and power from before he died and Sasuke's own abilities, including his Chidori. The figure then began his charge to the two ninja, his Sharingan moving to find the best possible target to hit. Kiba. Naruto said. Yeah. I know, he replied. Seconds before the electricity struck them, all three jumped out of the way as the man continued his charge but ceased his attack when he realized he was out of range. He looked up to them who were still in the air. Before the ninja could attempt to formulate a counterattack, the cloaked man was gone. What the? Where'd he go? Naruto said. Kiba took a sniff and pulled a kunai out. There. He turned and swung his knife to the smell behind him. The kunai met with another force as it clanked. Kiba growled at the reflexes this person possessed. But at the very least he had him still. He looked at his kunai but noticed this person wasn't using any sort of blade. Nothing. Just his seemingly long nails resembling claws now. Naruto. Now. Gotcha. He put his hands together. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. As Kiba and the man reached the ground still in a standstill, well over a dozen Narutos joined them. All of them began their rush towards him as Kiba jumped away. The cloaked man knelt down before extending his hands out, his nails breaking through the bandages wrapped around his hands. He made a combination of two hand signs and waited for the clones to attack. When they did, he jumped above. Inuzuka-style shower of the werewolf. The clones looked above as a shower of long nails came from the direction of the man. A quick number of clones exploded in a puff of smoke as the large number quickly disappeared completely until only Kiba and Akamaru remained. What the? How does he know that? First that Hyuga move, now this and Sasuke's Chidori. I don't like this. You missed one. A voice came from being the man. He quickly turned but only saw Naruto diving towards him with a Rasengan in hand. The attack connected, knocking the cloaked man straight into the ground by the entrance of the hideout. Naruto landed down, Kiba quickly joining to his side. Kabuto stood on top of the boulder with his arms still crossed. All right, Kabuto, we beat your little experiment. Naruto said. Now let us through. Kabuto laughed. You did? Kiba was the first to notice, but his legs couldn't move fast enough. The figure was already behind them, delivering a hard kick to the back of Naruto's head. In the same moment as his body fell, he hurtled over Naruto's shoulder and swung a roundhouse kick to Kiba's face. He fell to his knees, slamming his fist into Kiba's stomach, knocking him out. Akamaru tried to lunge, but he had gotten behind him, chopping the back of his neck, rendering him unconscious as well. You had me worried there for a moment. Kabuto said. I've been hit by that Rasengan before. It can leave quite a sting. The man said nothing but looked down at Naruto and Kiba's unconscious bodies as he picked them up. He made a shadow clone that carried Akamaru as he walked to the door of the hideout. Kabuto jumped down to join him as he opened the door and they entered down to the hideout. Hiding behind a rock, Naruto glanced over at the door as it closed. He had been lucky to let the clone go and use his attack and not be captured. But now Kiba and Akamaru were inside and he had no idea what Guy and Lee were doing at the moment. I gotta get in there, he thought to himself as he let himself out of cover. He ran up to the door that was just closed and tried to open it. It didn't budge and he knew using chakra would only alert them. He had to be quiet, which wasn't something he was very reputable for, but the times demanded it and he had to deliver. Why don't you let me take a swing at it? Said an approaching voice. Naruto looked and gave a small smile to his teacher. Kakashi-sensei. I know. Things are pretty bad right now. That's why I followed you guys. He approached the lock and after examining it carefully he focused a small amount of chakra to his finger to break the lock apart, opening the door for them. After you. Scene change, Kiba's body plopped onto a cold stone surface. He awoke in a dimly lit room and slowly picked himself up. Akamaru was right next to him and the sounds of voices began to become coherent as he listened in. A shadow clone? How did you not see this? It took a kick to the back of the head fairly well. Normally it would have dissipated by then. I see. It paused. The other two are real? Yes. Good. All we need to do is wait then. Maybe not, he's already waking up. Kiba's eyes finally fixed on Sasuke and Kabuto. The former was sitting with his legs crossed while the latter remained standing in front of him with his head turned behind facing Kiba. You're awake, said Sasuke. Kiba felt wobbly. Almost as if he were completely out of it. Was he drugged? Yu, what is this? Why can't I see straight? A minor sedative. I had to ensure you wouldn't wake up and try to escape. It's how I found out the Naruto that fell was a shadow clone, said Kabuto. Shadow clone. He looked over to Akamaru who was laying down yawning in no real focus either. Akamaru, you okay boy? He asked groggy. Akamaru gave a small groan but Kiba could tell he was okay. Just out of it like he was. Why or what do you want with me? Kiba asked. You are the one who came here to find me, said Sasuke. Kiba began to feel himself regain his composure. His sense of smell was returning and the scents that were standing out began to make his blood boil. Where is Sakura? Where's Kayasato? He asked, finally beginning to keep his balance steady. Your child is safe. Sasuke smirked. And Sakura, his senses immediately came back to him. The scent, the face, the way he held himself. He lost it. You sick fucking bastard. Kiba yelled as he wildly ran towards Sasuke, extending his claws as his eyes began to whiten, tapping into his Kekkai Genkai. I'll fucking kill you. His attack was brought to a halt as the cloaked figure appeared right in front of him. Kiba lowered himself to trip him but the man had jumped, kicking Kiba's head up after coming into contact with his chin. He backflipped and gave a quick flurry of swipes with both of his claws but the man easily blocked all of them with one of his hands. Finally seeing an opening he grabbed through his barrage and clung onto his neck. The sudden ruggedness of the bandages irritated his skin but his chakra kept rising. He could smell it all over Sasuke. Sex, rape, tears, fear all over him. He couldn't wait to get his nails into him. Unfortunately the grip the cloaked figure had on him was tight. He could barely breathe, let alone fight. Akamaru was still under the influence, still unable to move much as his master was held up by another man. Kiba looked at the man, trying to see past his cloak and to see his face. He had to be sure it was the same scent as before. Slowly he felt his eyes return to normal color. He couldn't maintain his power when he was held like that, and the added fact he was having trouble breathing only made it worse for him. Who are you? The man said nothing, only breathed as he did before. His Sharingan shining brightly behind the darkness of his hood. I'll let you in on a little secret, Kiba. Kabuto said. We needed a powerful shinobi to use our finished product on. We couldn't just use anyone. Also we needed to test the level of likeliness the blood catalyst would support multiple types of blood types. What are you talking about? Kiba said, struggling to get free but was not finding any relief. Sasuke is an AB blood type. Sakura is an O. And our friend here, he's AB. Just like you. What's that have to do with anything? He growled. This is where the genius in my research is shown, can't you see? The blood catalyst from Sakura is a freebie to begin with. It supports Sasuke's blood type as well as any other blood type should they have intercourse. Kiba growled loudly as he reached for Sasuke but knew he couldn't get to him so long as that man held him by the throat. Sasuke stared at him with a smirk on his face, not caring about his actions. However, if we synthetically were to add another blood type, in a sense, if we were going to replicate the Sharingan in another person who did not share the same blood type as Sasuke or Sakura, it would be ideal to test. Basically, our friend here checked out. He now carries all 3 blood types in his system. Sakura's, Sasuke's, and his own, complete with every gift level of chakra and special abilities that came with it. He grinned. So he's not an Uchiha? Technically no. But as a fighter he possessed every ability that Sasuke does. Kabuto boasted. Imagine thousands upon thousands of warriors just like this one marching to the Hidden Leaf Village, to the Sandstone Mist and Cloud. A fighting force of true ingenuity. The greatness of all the weaknesses of neither. You idiot! Kiba said. I'm not a scientist, but everything has a flaw. This experiment isn't foolproof. Even over-the-counter medicine isn't foolproof. There's a gap in your experiment and I'm gonna find it. The man holding Kiba's throat let go, and as his body began falling he quickly 360 roundhousing Kiba into a pillar. Kiba staggered to his feet. Akamaru was still out of it, his teammates were all gone. It was just him against 3 out of his league ninja. But just as his thoughts began to run sour, a cracking of electricity could be heard from behind the cloaked man. A tall silver-haired ninja stood behind him with a lightning blade right behind the back of the cloaked man. Sasuke scoffed at his old teacher's appearance, paying no real mind to it. I had a feeling you would come, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi. The muffled sound came from the hood of the man. This was the first time it had ever spoken outside of casting jutsu. The sound of his voice surprised Kakashi and Kiba, but Kakashi wasn't going to withdraw his attack. Very good. You know my name. Too bad this is the part where I kill you. Kakashi said as he brought his jutsu back and lunged it forward into the back entrance to the man's heart. And it would have killed him had he not spun around Kakashi, planting his foot into his back and sending him staggering towards Kiba. He backflipped away from them, keeping his sleeves connected. Kakashi regained his balance and stood by Kiba. Are you okay? Kiba nodded. I'm fine. Where's Naruto? He's getting Guy and Lee. Sooner they take care of Kisame the better. His eyes widened shortly after he said that, looking into the eyes of the man he attempted to assassinate. The Sharingan? Kakashi looked at Kabuto and then Sasuke. I see. He's not an Uchiha. Lucky for me then. I would hate to have to fight Itachi again. Kiba. He said. I need you to do something. What is it? Kiba asked. I need you to distract him for a minute. He said, closing his left eye. Whoever he is, he's incredibly powerful. I didn't want to go all the way for this fight. I was hoping to conserve more chakra for Sasuke or Kabuto. Kakashi opened his left eye again. Kiba saw now. The swirls in his Sharingan told him exactly why he needed to distract the hooded individual. The Mangekyo Sharingan? Already? Kiba thought. Then he looked at the cloaked man across the chamber from them. I get it now. He wants to use it to try and kill that guy. Okay, Kiba, don't screw this up. I'm ready, said Kiba, taking a stance. Good. The sooner the better, Kakashi replied. Sasuke and Kabuto watched their plan as they began to slowly move in different directions. I'm going in, Sasuke said, standing up. That won't be necessary, Sasuke, Kabuto said. I said I have control of him, and I do. Especially now where he would be at his weakest. It's the perfect matchup, I assure you. Sasuke scoffed. This isn't a game, Kabuto. Is this why you picked him? Kabuto nodded. It did take some time to find the DNA, but it was well worth it. Kiba quickly lunged towards the man and swiped once. The cloaked man easily dodged and skidded away from him as Kiba rushed after him. He pulled out a pair of 3 kunai and tossed them towards his chest, but he used an arm to deflect them all, stopping as he did so. He took the opportunity and swung at him, following with a massive flourish of punches. The man didn't even use his hands to block, he simply moved his head to get by all of them, finally stopping the attack by landing one punch into his stomach, knocking him back. "Move," Kakashi said. Kiba jumped away and the man saw Kakashi staring right into him with his Mangekyo focusing right on him. "I have to make this count," he declared. His Mangekyo Sharingan gave a powerful and final focus and a large barrier formed around the cloaked man, giving a small vortex in design. "Kamui," said Sasuke. "You shouldn't have stopped me, Kabuto. There's no defense against that jutsu." "There isn't," he replied. "But this is just an even greater test to see if he can get out of it." The whirlpool of chakra concentrated on the head of the cloaked man. "Got you." Kakashi timed his shot and activated his jutsu in an attempt to take the head off of the man. When he did, the whirlpool closed, but the man was still standing. His hood had been torn away, now revealing his head, which was covered in bandages still. The very top of his head was not showing, a long loose carry of straight brown hair ending at his upper back. All that was visible on his head were his eyes and his hair, still difficult to distinguish. "At least we know you're human," Kakashi said. "Who are you? And why are you serving this madman?" Kakashi's eyes opened horrifically as he finally realized who was behind the mask of bandages. No, there's no way. Not you." Kabuto quirked an eyebrow. It's no wonder why it was so difficult to control him. Between keeping family hostage, fighting against some of the closest people to him. I must say the jutsu was definitely pushed to its limits when I chose him. Sasuke. Their attention, well, Sasuke and Kabuto's attention at least, was turned to the entrance of the large chamber. Standing at the entrance was Naruto with Guy and Lee at his side, though scratched up and showed signs of battle. They were both relatively okay. "Naruto," said Sasuke. Sasuke, where's Naruto, was beginning to feel weak. Everyone wanted to bring down Sasuke, all but him. He still saw his old friend from so long ago, and he felt like he was the only one who had wanted to listen. "Where's Sakura, Sasuke? Naruto, get back!" Kiba yelled at him. At that moment, the now hooded man flipped over Kakashi and landed in the middle of Guy, Lee, and Naruto. With little time to react, he shot his elbow backwards, striking Naruto's back and sending him down. He brought his leg up to kick Lee, but Lee had already ducked and jumped back. In the same motion, his foot moved towards Guy's head, but Guy held his arm up to block it, keeping him still. He regained his composure and jumped back, running towards Guy as they both began a battle of taijutsu equal in speed and neither showing any sense of fatigue or openings in their techniques. But the man tripped Guy, then backflipped himself towards the front, keeping his back to Sasuke and Kabuto as all five ninja and a now fully aware Akamaru faced them. "Well, I suppose there's no point in keeping it hidden much longer," Kabuto said. "Go ahead and introduce yourself. A little reunion would be nice, though it won't make much of a difference." And so the man complied, raising his hand and finding a loose bandage and began twirling it. After a few moments, the collection of bandages hit the ground and revealed his face. He then tossed his cloak away, revealing a full shinobi uniform underneath. The vest, the pants, and all. Underneath was a complete full-body set of bandages. They appeared to be covering something, but what was unsure. Kiba was even more terrified at what he saw. Lifeless, emotionless, and the Sharingan only added more to his terrifying appearance. He almost fell to his knees at the sight before him. And no, he gulped. Now a full view of his face only worried the ones who had known him. His straight brown hair was loose, keeping to his upper back as the small draft in the room carried some of it away. The Sharingan only made him look like someone they had never seen before. A complete change almost with those eyes. But the trait that sent chills down Kiba's spine was the most obvious one. The upside-down red triangles. "I hope this does not perturb you fighting Kiba and Kakashi. I know you two have a bit of a history." Kabuto chuckled. "Naruto," Lee whispered. "Who is that?" Naruto shook his head. "I don't know exactly. But he has the same birthmark as Kiba." "Wait a minute. He looks just like Kiba. Just with long hair. Then that means Kaya Sato." said Kabuto, pointing towards the ninja team. Kill them. All of them. He closed his eyes and reopened them to reveal his black eyes and the 3 red intersecting ellipses. He knelt for a moment and charged at the ninjas not too far away from him. Dad! Kiba yelled, but it fell on deaf ears. His attack continued as he drew closer. Sensei, I see. We have no choice then, Kakashi said to himself. Kayasato jumped above them, pulling his claws out as he lingered over them. Die! Chapter 29. Kayasato plunged down into the ground, causing a massive crater where his hands landed. All of the ninjas were able to jump away in time as they scattered and gained distance between him. His strength, he has Sakura's genes. No wonder. I can't get hit by that or I'm done, Kakashi thought. He looked over at Kiba, whose eyes were still lit, horrified at what he was seeing. Kiba! He didn't respond. His father glanced at him and made a rush towards him, closing his left eye only this time. Dad! What's happened to you? Kiba cried to him. It's me. Kayasato's eye began to bleed from the amount of pressure being placed on it, the blood running down his face as he reopened it and focused directly on Kiba. Dad? Amaterasu. He said monotone as the black flames surged from his eye. Kiba! Move! Kakashi yelled to him. He finally snapped back to reality as he barely dodged the flames as they shot by him, setting the wall it hit on fire. Kiba! I know he looks like your father, but he isn't. Kabuto is controlling him with the same jutsu Orochimaru used to bring back the Hokages. Kiba shook his head and gritted his teeth. No. You're wrong. I know it's him. I just need to make him see. Arf. I can handle the situation here, Sasuke, said Kabuto. You should probably get ready for when they come looking for you. Make sure Sakura doesn't leave as well. Sasuke scoffed. I suppose so. Don't let me down, Kabuto. He chuckled as Sasuke walked off. He reached into his pocket and held a syringe similar to the one he used to inject Kayasato with. No, Sasuke. You have nothing to worry about at all. Sasuke! Naruto shouted as he noticed Sasuke leaving the chamber. He looked over to Guy. Guy-sensei. We have to go after him. Not so fast, Naruto. I have a feeling Sasuke isn't leaving just yet. We need to stay here. I vaguely remember Kayasato when I was a child. He's powerful. And if Kabuto is controlling him, we need the numbers if we want to gain an edge. No. Kakashi said. Naruto's right. Kiba and I can handle him. Besides, he's set on it, and I know Naruto's been wanting his chance to go after Sasuke ever since the day he left the village. Go with him, Guy. And it'd be best to take Lee with you too. Guy nodded. You heard him, Naruto. Lee. Time to go. Right. Naruto said as the 3 made off after Sasuke. Kabuto watched them as they rushed right by him, not at all concerned that they were going after Sasuke. Kiba and his father were in a severe stare-off. His father was dead. He knew he was dead. He sat there and heard his entire life story practically. He helped him move on, yet here he was right in front of him trying to kill him. And all the while ignoring his attempts to get him to stop. Was there no way to get through to him? No. He thought. There's a way. There has to be. He took a fighting stance, noticing his father's Mangekyo returned to a regular Sharingan. He stopped it. He said out loud. Why'd he stop it? Kayasato slowly stepped towards Kiba. Kiba's eyes opened widely. He spoke to him. Dad. Kiba said as he ran to his father, wanting to hug him. Kiba. Stop. Kakashi yelled, but it was too late. Kabuto smiled as he focused his thoughts into Kayasato's. Obey. Obey. Kayasato screamed as he fell to his knees from the intrusion. Kiba stopped in his tracks right in front of his father as he watched him grip his head like it was about to explode. Dad. What's wrong? Finally he released his head and shot his head up, glaring at Kiba. "What the?" "I will obey," said the mix of Kabuto and his father's voice. Kiba stepped back, but his father was too quick. Kiba, despite being known for his speed in the village, was an old man on a cane compared to his father. A strong fist was planted into his back as he shot forward, flying through the afterimage of his father that was dissipating. He caught himself as he landed back, standing next to Kakashi from where he landed. "Is that the Sharingan giving him that kind of speed?" Kiba asked, catching his breath. "No," Kakashi said. "Your father was one of the fastest ninja in the Hidden Leaf that ever lived. Surpassed only by the third and fourth Hokage. Except he didn't use space-time jutsu like the fourth. It's absolutely raw speed. He talked to me though. He's not gone, Kakashi. He's just being controlled." Kakashi sighed. "The way this jutsu works is they find a piece of DNA from the person they want to revive. After that they need a human body to host the soul. That's all it is his soul." He growled. He was right, but he didn't want him to be. His father was right there, but he wasn't. He had begun his path to moving on, and now he was stuck here. He knew he was in there somewhere, he just had to get him to break out of this control. "I have to try," Kiba said, keeping his arms down and retracting his nails to his hands. "Kiba, what are you doing?" Kakashi panicked. "I can't do it. There has to be another way to get him to break out of this, and I want to make it happen." He slowly stepped towards his father, dropping his guard completely, and continued with his arms spread wide until he reached his father face to face. The look in his father's eyes were demonic. Evil and lusting for blood. The Sharingan was truly a scary thing. Regardless, Kiba stared right into his eyes. "Arf. Arf. Stay back, Akamaru," Kiba said, still facing his father. "You need to stay back. I have to do this, just me." He gulped as the lifeless look on his father's face was beginning to terrify him. "I know you're in there, Dad." His father's lips were weighted together. Magnetic it felt. Like he was on the inside looking out. The stare was cold and completely devoid of any and all emotion, but Kiba could smell behind it. He knew his father was in there. Trapped. But the trap was well placed. Kayasato lunged a kick into Kiba's stomach, causing him to grip it from the pain as he wallowed back slowly. Kiba looked up, but his father was gone. "Obey." Kiba's eyes opened as he felt a sharp hand go into his back as the force of the fist forced itself onto the bone. Not breaking, but causing an intense amount of pain as Kiba flew a few feet away to the ground. He laid still in the ground as the debris and smoke cleared from the rocks that cracked when he hit the floor. Kakashi and Akamaru watched from the distance as Kiba didn't move. "Humph," Kabuto said finally. "That took a lot longer than it should have." He snapped his fingers and pointed to Kiba's body. "Finish him." Kayasato sharply turned his body as he stared at Kabuto. In the blink of an eye, Kabuto was face to face with the Inuzuka Sharingan hybrid, shocking him as he stepped back out of being startled. "What the?" He opened the palm of his right hand, wrapping a seal around it. "What are you doing, Kayasato?" His face was trembling as he reached his hand up. "I'll kill you." "You'll kill who?" "I'll kill you," he yelled as he swung his hand claws extended. The nails stopped right before Kabuto's eyes, though he was not surprised or shocked in the slightest. "I see, I have to increase control. Not something I wanted to do since I'm going to lose a lot of power in you, but better to be safe, I suppose." The seal on his hand was glowing as Kayasato withdrew his hand, grabbing a hold of his head, screeching in pain as if someone was drilling into it without anesthetics. "You had great potential. You held everything perfectly and your skills were commendable. But you can't keep loyal to your masters, can you?" Kayasato sat there, knelt at Kabuto's feet, struggling to restrain himself from going insane as the grip in his head worsened. "Fuck you. Not quite the answer I was looking for," he said. He closed his eyes as his thoughts entered the mind of his slave. "Obey." The thoughts burrowed their way into his head as he banged his head against the floor, crying out in the pain he was enduring. All that was there was his soul in this world, and it was being violated. You will obey. Was it just his soul trapped? Everything he felt was real. Like he was alive again. All the hurt and pain from being alive being subjected into his head as he felt his fake eyes turning inside and out every second, wishing it would stop. He could feel his synthetic Sharingan change from regular to Mangekyo, then back to regular and back to Mangekyo again in a viciously quick cycle that brought more discomfort every time it happened. Obey. Letting out a final long scream, the older Inuzuka collapsed to the floor. Kabuto stared down at Kayasato's body. Looks like he couldn't handle total control. Another failed experiment. Useless. Maybe not. Kabuto's gasped as his heart grew cold. He looked down in horror as he saw a hand with a concentrated current of electricity coming straight out of his chest. How did Kabuto stopped from coughing up blood, the remains flowing freely down his face. It's an advanced form of the Kenjutsu Orochimaru used on the Hokages. That seal gives complete mental dominance. They can't even speak or think and you can command them telepathically. Kakashi ripped his hand out of Kabuto's chest as the medical ninja fell to his knees and onto his back as he turned when falling, facing Kakashi when he finally landed. Unfortunately, Kakashi said, stepping over to the dying ninja. Using an ability like that drains all the chakra in your body to control the ones you possessed. Sneaking up behind you was as easy as keeping myself hidden. Kabuto gave a weak chuckle. I see, so you figured it all out then. Even Orochimaru knew the dangers of that jutsu. Did you really think you could master it when he could not? He replied. Maybe, but it's obvious to say that I failed. So close. End to all conflict. All division. Kabuto said, violently coughing as more blood landed on his shirt and on his mouth. Kakashi loomed over Kabuto now. He kneeled down to face him. When you use evil to do good, all that is left in the aftermath is the evil. You could never understand the importance of my research. I could have prevented people from dying. All the diseases in the world cured, the antidote found in the blood type of different humans. A true medical breakthrough. Kakashi sighed. All you broke was a man. And a family's heart even further. Kabuto started chuckling, building to a laughter, and eventually he was hysterical. Always in theatrics. He coughed harshly. Such a powerful ninja, Kakashi Hatake. The power I could have built for everyone, no one would dare fight again. Where is Sasuke? Kakashi changed the subject. No point in keeping it a secret. Then again, he's easy to find. He's not going to where you came from, and there's only one other way out, so you put the rest together. You had this coming, Kabuto. Kakashi coldly said. I did, and I'm content. Though I will regret never finishing my work. But someone else will. Just watch. The answer is so. He exhaled his last breath as his head stiffening as he died. Kakashi reached his fingers over Kabuto's eyes and shut them. Akamaru whimpered as he stood next to him, walking over to Kiba. How is he, Akamaru? Arf. Kiba grunted as he slowly picked himself up, coming to a sit as Kakashi approached him. You look okay. Yeah, but I feel like ass. Kiba replied. He glanced around and noticed the two bodies lying down. Kakashi-sensei, what happened? Your father was starting to fight the control of the jutsu Kabuto had over him. When he overextended his ability and sought to gain complete control, I was able to get behind him and kill him. He sighed. It's a shame. Losing the same sensei. Twice. None of them were your fault, Kakashi. Kakashi and Kiba quickly turned around. Their eyes laid on Kayasato, holding his stomach with a slight limp. To everyone's surprise, his eyes were back to normal. The typical brown color. Now more than ever, Kakashi could see the resemblance between the two. 5 or 6 inches in height and about a foot length in hair is all that separated them. Dad! Kiba shouted as he ran towards him, grabbing him tightly as the father and son shared a long hug. Kakashi walked over towards them. It was a quiet moment, though the silence spoke days' worth of words between the two. Kayasato looked up to see Kakashi, a full-grown man, standing closely in front of them. Kakashi, look at you. Kakashi smiled. It's been a long time, Kayasato-sensei. Kiba let go of his dad and looked up as he backed up. Dad, what's going on? Why were you? Kabuto used a kenjutsu to bring me back to life. My soul was never sealed when I died, so I simply woke up and found myself here. Kakashi intervened. How much longer? About another 2 or 3 minutes. Wait, 2 or 3 minutes? Kiba looked confused. Dad, what are you talking about? Kayasato gave a heavy sigh. It took all the strength I had left to fight it for this long. I'm still under the contract of the jutsu. I cannot stay like this for much longer. Kiba's eyes opened wide. No, you're standing right here talking to us. The Sharingan is gone. Only because I'm suppressing it. I have a few minutes at best before I lose control again. To stop it, Kiba. He snapped at him. Kiba had a small look of hurt on his face, but he knew why his father was saying it. I did this because I wanted to see you one last time. I had hoped when we had met last time that would have been it until you were finally done with your time here in this world. But this way I got a chance to see how great of a ninja you have become. He looked over at Kakashi, his headband still up from his fight, before showing his Sharingan. Kakashi, when did not too long after you went missing? About a year afterwards. I see, it saddens me to know that boy died so young. Obito died a hero, sensei. He gave his life for me to be here. And I really felt in the end we became friends. He nodded and paid mine to his son. Kiba, he stopped. A loud pulsating heartbeat echoed in his head. His face stilled for a moment. Dad. Dad, what's wrong? Kiba yelled in concern. Kiba, you need to go. He fell to the floor onto his knees as he gripped onto his head again. What do I need to do, Dad? Kill me. You have to kill me, Kiba. Or I'll kill you and Kakashi and everyone else. Did he just say that? Kiba ran the words through his head again and again, and it came out the same. Use it. Kayasato said to Kiba, his eyes fading into a swirling red. Use it. He yelled as he finally lost control of himself. His eyes had completely changed back to the Sharingan as he slammed his foot into Kiba's stomach, launching him back several feet. Kakashi had enough time to react and attempt to charge his lightning blade. He swung it down on his former sensei, but Kayasato easily caught his hand, ramming his fist into Kakashi's stomach, knocking him back as well. Akamaru ran back to Kiba, scratching him in an attempt to get his attention. He finally reacted as he made himself stand up, still in disbelief. His father was 20 feet across the chamber from him, and just a few minutes ago he was hugging him. Now he wants him to kill him? Why are you standing there? Kayasato shouted, now dashing towards him with his now extended claws crossed in an X shape. I'll kill everyone. Including Sakura and your son. You have to stop me. The tears he had been holding back finally broke the dam as they laid moisture down Kiba's face. He couldn't keep putting this off. He was right. So long as he was here, he was possessed. Even with Kabuto dead, he was still under the condition of fighting and killing. Dad, I'm so sorry. Kiba focused his energy and crossed his claws into an X shape like his father did. When he opened his eyes, he was sharply focused onto his father's figure. He charged at full speed towards him, repeating in his mind how he needed to pull the attack off. The father and son finally jumped towards each other, breaking their X shapes, and began flaying their claws around in a massive flurry, nearly impossible to be followed by the human eye, only traceable by hearing. Sasuke, I'm coming after you right after this. He thought. Now. Kayasato shouted as they both yelled toward in unison about the attack. Inuzuka-style fangs of Jiro Kuroki. And they appeared completely stopped in mid-air. Arms even seemed to have disappeared. Kakashi, still recovering from his hit, was barely able to follow their movements with his Sharingan. The speed of the claws were so great they were both knocked back. But it seemed practiced. As if it was supposed to happen. Kiba and his father landed on opposite pillars and launched themselves towards each other with only one claw extended. Kiba. Father. Clank. Scene change. Every door looked the same. Almost all the rooms looked the same. But Sakura still kept looking. She couldn't wait any longer. Sasuke and Kabuto were gone. She had to find her son and break out herself. Several doors later she finally entered a dimly lit laboratory. She shut the door behind her, walking up to the small cots and held her hand over her mouth. Kayasato was sound asleep. The baby was just laying there, no scratches, no scars, just sleeping. Thank God Sasuke hasn't touched you, she thought as she looked down at him. Her hand gently touching his small hand as she played with his fingers. You're not supposed to be out of your room. Sakura's eyes shot open as she gasped. Frozen in fear, she let go of the baby's hand as her hand was grabbed and forced her to turn around, facing a pair of glaring Sharingan. Sasuke. But I suppose it doesn't matter. I was coming for you anyway. What? We're going. Come on. Sasuke made a movement, but Sakura let go and stayed where she was. Sakura. No. She yelled hesitantly. Her fears were drowning her. He was scary before he raped her, but after that her hate for him converted into an all-knowing fear. I don't have time to waste on you, Sasuke said as he quickly landed a punch into the already weakened Kunoichi, knocking her out. He caught her before throwing her over his shoulders and exiting the room. He turned left and began heading down a new area of the hideout towards an exit. Kabuto's dead. I can't sense him anymore. And the experiment, scene change, when it was all said and done, two noises were heard from Kakashi. One was a loud crashing thud into the ground. The other was a rough landing of feet. When he finally saw the result, he could see Kayasato standing while Kiba laid on his stomach, struggling to pick himself up with his arms but could not. Kiba finally was able to turn himself onto his back and force his arms to support himself as he slowly made his way to a kneeling position. Kiba, his father said sternly. Kiba held his stomach tightly in pain as he stood up. He had been hit. He could not tell how deep, but the pain from the jutsu itself was excruciating. You did it, his father weakly said as he fell back onto his back. No, he yelled as he gained enough energy to rush over to his father's side. His whole face was getting colder by the second. He gasped as he looked down at what he had done. Several inch-deep gashes covered his father's chest and stomach as his green Jonin vest was nearly completely deepened with the red of his own blood. His voice was breaking the moment he opened his mouth as his tears raged down his face. Dad, I'm so— oh my God, Dad, why did I stop? You know you needed to do this. Kiba sniffed and wiped his tears, but they still kept coming. This isn't fair. I didn't want to have to do this to you. He gripped his own wound as he looked down at his vest to his stomach. It was a cut that had broken the skin, but nothing life-threatening. He could recover from this wound easily, but his father, he knew he was on his last moments now. You did a great thing, Kiba. No, I didn't. Son, yes you did. I was brought back to this world for all the wrong reasons. They were going to make more like me. To destroy the village and the others as well. Kiba looked down at his father, holding his hand as he looked up at his son with a weak smile. You may have just saved a lot of lives, son. I couldn't have asked for a better thing to be proud of. Dad. Kakashi knelt down on the opposite side of Kiba as he looked down at his formerly short-lived master. The multiple claw marks made sense now that he thought about it. The flurry of claws wasn't a battle of taijutsu. It was a collection of several attacks into one. When Kiba hit his father, it was like striking him over a dozen times at once, whereas his father purposely hit Kiba only one time from the looks of it. You had enough control to stop that attack from being fatal, Kayasato-sensei. Yes, that's right. Had I not shifted it in time, it's okay, sensei. Kakashi looked up at Kiba. I think you'll find your son has grown quite a bit. Yes, he certainly has. Kayasato smiled before coughing up a small patch of dark red blood. Kiba. Yeah, Dad? He asked weakly. I'm so proud of you, son. He took his hand that was still held in Kiba's and placed it over Kiba's heart. Son, you have done so much in your life, more than I have. You have become so strong, so gifted, even stronger than I am. You just don't realize it yet. He looked over at the side of Kiba's Jonin vest. And justice for all you found it. Kiba nodded with a smile on his face. I knew if I wore it would be like having you with me. Good good. Learn what it really means in your travels. He swallowed. I hope this is the last time that I see you until you are finally done in this world. Kiba, protect your mate. Raise your family. And mind your mother. I wish I could have seen her again. Mom loves you, Dad. She always will. He sniffed. Kayasato looked up into his son's reddened eyes now. You have nothing to worry about now. I'm not really dead. You see, he let go of Kiba's hand and placed his index finger over Kiba's heart. I'll always be there. Right there, the sound of the hand hitting the floor told Kiba what had just happened. His eyes were slit open, still his weak smile still showing, but Kiba could smell it on him. He was gone. Dad. The drop in his heart was extreme. He had seen death. He watched Shino and Akamaru die right in front of him many years ago when pain attacked the village. But this was different. He killed him. It kept going through his head. He killed his father. He was dead. They met in the afterlife. He came back and he had to fight him. He had to kill him. His thoughts were interrupted by a warm hand on his back. He looked up to see Kakashi standing behind him. I killed him. Kakashi shook his head. No, Kiba. You freed him. He was trapped by Kabuto. But you got him free. You helped him. Don't ever think differently. Kiba said nothing but stood up and turned to face Kakashi. He wanted nothing more than to sink his face into the jonin and exhaust his eyes of tears, but he knew he had one more thing he had to do. Sakura, he nodded to Kakashi and the three made their way towards the direction that Guy and the others went. Scene change, the chamber now empty, lit dimly as ever as the body stayed still. On the shoulder of his jonin vest on the left shoulder a faint sentence could be seen if examined closely. And justice for all. 00000000000000000000000 Chapter 30 00000000000000000000000. The door opened with a loud crash as it flew towards the wall it was slammed into. Kiba ran through the door and quickly looked around, letting his nose examine the room for any familiar scents. Nothing. He looked over at Kakashi. Wouldn't there be a lab here if they were doing experiments? Most likely. But they wouldn't leave it around here so close to the main chamber. It didn't feel like they were close. He had been slamming doors open and running down hallways for what felt like hours, but he couldn't measure time from the adrenaline pumping through his veins. His wound had since healed from his father's forced slash, but he could still feel the pain, the emptiness. Fuck. Stop it, Kiba. We'll have time for that after we kick the shit out of Sasuke. He thought to himself as he opened another door. What the fucking fuck? I can't find anything. I keep getting sense left and right, but Kiba. Kakashi said as he touched his shoulder. I know this is hard, but you need to try and relax. I can't goddamn lax, Kakashi-sensei. You don't know what I smelt on Sasuke. He doesn't just take Sakura prisoner. What do you mean exactly? Kiba said nothing as he sighed, walking out the door and heading to the next one. I see he's sunk that low. Kakashi tried to think to himself, holding his own new anger together as he followed Kiba. So much has happened to the young man in such a short amount of time. He could sympathize as he was a victim of pain as well. Losing his father but having to fight and essentially kill him was traumatic. He knew that would take years to get over. And knowing the things Sasuke has done to Sakura will without a doubt leave its own brand of scars on the already delicate kunoichi. Kiba ran down the hall for a few more minutes before freezing. His nose was working until it fixed on a stronger scent sticking out from the rest. He ran 2 doors down and kicked the one down to the left. Inside was another dark room, but Kiba was never blind if his senses could work. He walked left from the entrance and bumped slightly into an aisle of cots. Arf. Kiba squinted his eyes as he focused on Akamaru. The dog was standing next to a cot on the other side of the aisle, wagging his tail. Kiba quickly made his way to the cot he was standing next to and looked down. His eyes might not have been working 100% due to the lack of light, but the scent was undeniable. It was his son. Sleeping peacefully and no scars interred. Kakashi-sensei. He called out. When Kakashi made his way over to Kiba, he made out the figure as Kiba holding the baby as they came into contact. Kiba walked out of the door and checked both sides before stepping into the hallway completely. He looked down at his son, who was still sleeping, possibly completely unaware to what was going on, most likely for the better. I'll take him. Kakashi spoke up. Kiba looked over. What? It's not really ninja code to bring a baby into battle. Besides, I've used the Sharingan for too long. I'll end up causing more problems in the end. Maybe he was right, but Kiba wasn't at top form either. He had used easily over half of his chakra, probably more. If he didn't think this was his only chance to get Sakura back, he would try and find a way to get his chakra back quickly. But this was do or die, and he knew this was it. Guy and the others, I'm sure, have either caught up to Sasuke or are still in pursuit. You should hurry, Kakashi said, offering his hands out to hold the year-old baby. He hesitated for a moment. But he really had no other choice. He sighed and handed the baby over to Kakashi. Take care of him. He nodded. I'll send for help as soon as I get back to the cloud. Scene change. Guy's foot made direct contact into the ground where he had, though Sasuke was standing, but he had moved at the last moment. His foot left a small crater in the earth, a sign he was showing no mercy to the former Leaf Ninja. Though Naruto had insisted he fight Sasuke, Guy told him he must face him alone since Lee was frail from opening the fifth gate and attempted to use the lotus. Though it appeared successful, Sasuke was quick enough to make a substitution at the last minute, injuring Lee to the point where he needed to stay out during the fight. Guy closed his eyes and focused as he listened for Sasuke. They were fighting on a rocky outcrop, more of a mountain than anything else, but surrounded by wildlife. Picking out his footsteps would be difficult due to the large amount of noises. But he found it right at the perfect time as Sasuke's sword met with an afterimage produced by the taijutsu master. Sasuke paused, using his Sharingan to try and trace his chakra. He swung his sword around only to have it wrapped up by Guy's nunchaku. He swung his weapon and watched as Sasuke's sword flew off towards the edge of the plateau. I think it is time I got serious, Guy said with a clever smirk. He tossed his nunchaku to the opposite side of Sasuke's sword as the two faced each other closely, neither moving. I as well, Sasuke replied. Sasuke, Naruto called. Why are you doing this? What happened to you? Sasuke scoffed, keeping his eyes on Guy still. You of all people, Naruto. You want to become Hokage more than anything else. Yet you have no idea the cruelty your village has done. Or the people they would use to do their dirty work. Guy's eyes opened wide at what he said in surprise. How do you know that, Sasuke? After I killed Itachi, I met a man who informed me of the truth your village has done. He then glared over at Naruto. They secluded us to the corner of the village to watch us. Like animals. And the elders, they ordered Itachi, they ordered him to murder the entire Uchiha clan. Naruto and Lee gasped from the surprise. The news was a total shock to them. Guy shook his head. Sasuke. The elders ordered the massacre because it was near revolt. Don't you know? Your father was planning it with the entire clan. It would have weakened the defenses within the village and subjected us to more deaths, more lives lost. Why was this revolt going to happen? Was it for no reason? No. It wasn't. We were secluded, filtered prisoners practically. He returned his glare to Guy now. I only wish I was old enough to stop Itachi. Maybe if I did, we could have destroyed the elders together. You really believe that? Guy said. Itachi loved the village so much he was willing to turn his back on the clan. Not because they forced him to do anything, but because he loved his village so much he would do anything. And in the end, he pointed to Sasuke. He disobeyed his orders by not killing you. You have no idea what it means to do something like that. Don't tell me what I don't know. Sasuke yelled as he shut his eyes, reopening them to activate his Mangekyo Sharingan. The Uchiha will rebuild. And all of us will march towards the hidden leaf. The village will pay for what it has done. Guy nodded as he backflipped away from Sasuke. I see, then I have no choice. But how much can I actually deliver? Kakashi Kiba, now would be a good time to show up. I've used too much chakra from fighting what was his name again. Doesn't matter. I won't be able to do anything after I do this. If this doesn't work, then we'll be out of it quick. Guy took his hands and formed an X shape in front of him. The left hand sticking out with the right behind it. He curled his fingers and closed his eyes. Lee immediately picked up on what he was doing. Guy-sensei, what's wrong, Bushibrow? When we fought Kisame, Guy-sensei had to open the 6th gate to defeat him. That is why when you showed up to help us we were already done. They then focused on Guy's increasing chakra as his skin turned red and his hair began to fly wildly from the power emitting from his body. However, as a user of the jutsu myself, I know the type of strain it puts on your body. Guy-sensei has been training his whole life and he can maintain better care of his body than I when I use it. But he's using it so quickly after he had used it already once. He is desperate. Naruto agreed but kept quiet. He didn't want anyone to win. He didn't want anyone to die. Even after everything Sasuke had done, he was still his friend. Still like his brother. Guy's chakra was rising through the roof and it was beginning to worry Sasuke. He never showed this kind of power when he knew him, and even when they had begun fighting. The 6th gate of joy open. In that instance the chakra coming from him had jumped even further than before. Sasuke's worry rose, but he kept it to himself. His eyes opened with shock as he felt large chakra behind him. When he turned, he saw Guy right behind him delivering a strong kick to his back, launching him into the air. His thin green aura was a frightening thing that was both respected and feared by any who have seen him use this technique. Even more so for the ones who have had to be on the receiving end of it. I'm not finished with you yet, he said. This is it. I have to make this count right now. Guy formed the same hand position he did while opening the first gates. His sweat began to glow in a green color resembling the aura that was encasing him to begin with. The 7th gate of shock open. Power that had never been seen before flew in every direction of the taijutsu master. The sweat that turned green evaporated seconds after touching his skin, creating the aura-like appearance. Regardless, the increase in power was substantial. 7? Naruto said, looked at Lee. Hey Bushibrow, you know how there's an ability on some of the gates? Yes. What is the 7th gate's ability? Lee smiled. You shall see. But I advise we move back. What? Why? Trust me. They returned their attention to Guy, who was still radiating with insane power. I'm sorry it had to come to this, Sasuke. Guy said. But I have an obligation both as a jonin of the village hidden in the leaves and as a follower of my own ninja way. For the sake of everyone you have hurt and all those you plan to hurt, I must stop you. As the words left his mouth, his extreme speed had him behind Sasuke. Sasuke could only react after Guy's fist sent him flying back towards the ground, crashing and creating a small crater to keep him still. Guy took his small window of time, struggling to fight the pain in his body from the muscle fibers being ripped to shreds as he placed his right hand in front of him, keeping the palm completely open. Then taking his left hand, he slowly made a fist and tapped the section between his knuckles and his fingers onto the back of his right hand. Sasuke. It does not matter how powerful you have become, you will not survive this attack, he said as he finished the final piece of his attack. A unique hand sign resembling a tiger was all that was needed to set off the attack. Hiradora, he yelled as the mass of air deafened his call into nearly inaudibility. Sasuke only watched as Guy was shrouded in a white outline of what appeared to be a tiger. The air pressure was directed straight at his heart. It was so condensed and traveled so quickly that when it reached him he had barely taken a breath. Just before it reached Sasuke, merely feet away from him, the technique exploded in a massive concussive wave, making the scene of the attack completely unseeable after it was hit. The trees in the surrounding areas were rooted and torn away from their area, and the heavy foundations of rock that they were fighting on was blown away, leveling the entire area around them. Though the wave was non-fatal to Naruto and Lee, it still knocked them off balance significantly. Slowly the sensei lowered himself to the ground. The dust and smoke still hadn't cleared, but he did not sense Sasuke's chakra anymore. His hair returned to its normal style, skin back to its original color, and everything was as normal as it could be from the outside look. He looked to his left after catching view of a familiar lock of pink hair. "Naruto," Guy called. Naruto coughed as he ruffled his hair, trying to get the dust out, helping Lee stay up by keeping his arm around his shoulders. "Yeah, Guy-sensei? Sakura's here. Right next to me. Get her." Naruto was confused. "Guy-sensei, she's right there. Why can't you get her?" Because he chuckled to himself. "I can't move anything in my body. I'm in quite a bit of pain just standing right now." "What the?" Naruto said while sitting Lee down. "Is he telling the truth, Bushy-brow?" "He is. Do you remember when I fought Gaara in the Chunin exams? That was the after effect of using the fifth gate. Going higher adds only more pain for greater power. It is a forbidden jutsu for a very good reason." "No kidding," he said as he ran towards where he saw Sakura. She was laying down and unconscious. He bent down and tried shaking her to wake her up. "Sakura. Hey, come on, Sakura, it's me." Sakura didn't budge, but Naruto was relieved to know she was breathing and didn't look injured. He picked her up and brought her over to Lee, laying her down next to him before walking over to Guy. "Guy-sensei," he said. "Let me help you back over to the others." Guy nodded, taking in a deep breath. "Sure. Go ahead." Naruto slowly lifted Guy's right arm and placed it over his shoulders. Guy wasn't a screamer, but he could hear pained grunts being suppressed as he slowly walked him back towards where he had gathered everyone else. "I can still stand, Naruto. No need to worry about me," he said, smiling. "Naruto. Sakura is waking up," Lee said to him. Naruto quickly moved a few feet over to Sakura, who was beginning to sit herself up, rubbing her head. "Sakura," Naruto said. "Are you okay?" "Naruto?" She whispered, weak from the captivity and apparent lack of sleep. The bags under her eyes were so noticeable under the light of the sun. She looked miserable, but at the very least she was alive. "Yeah. It's me, Sakura," he cheerfully said, trying to lighten the mood. "Where am I?" she said, covering her eyes from the sun. "Don't worry, you're okay," Naruto replied. "We found you." "Well, Guy-sensei did, but where's Kiba? Where's the baby?" "Oh right. Forgot about that," he thought to himself before responding. "We went ahead without Kiba. He and Kakashi-sensei were fighting another ninja." Sakura didn't like that answer. She was nervous Kiba was hurt and the baby she had only seen that one time in several days, but she was too weak to do anything. A response would have to wait, seeing a physical connection to the outside world, until she could get her energy back. She was completely drained of chakra. And just as if her prayers were answered on the spot, an all too familiar figure landed right in front of them with his back facing. She knew who it was though. Dressed in full shinobi attire, sitting on a large white dog and carrying a signature smell anyone could pick up, was Kiba. He quickly got off Akamaru and turned around to see a weak Sakura sitting leaning forward looking towards him. She looked awful but alive. "Sakura." He knelt down next to her as she grabbed onto him and hugged him, immediately flooding his vest with tears. "I didn't know you would come," she said. "Are you kidding me? I couldn't sleep when I found out you were gone." He tightened his grip on her. "And Kaisato is safe. Kakashi took him back to the cloud. He's going to bring help." Kiba, she broke her hug and looked up at him, then resumed her previous hug again. "It doesn't even feel like you're here. I don't even know how much time has passed, and Sasuke, I know. But Sakura, you know my nose. I know everything. You haven't bathed since he took you, so it stands out." He looked over at Guy. "I just wish Guy-sensei didn't have to deprive me of the pleasure of doing the honors of taking care of him myself." "I didn't," said Guy in a serious and upset tone. Kiba let go of Sakura as he stood up. What are you talking about? Arf. Kiba opened his eyes in terror. No, he survived my strongest attack. I'm not sure how he was able to protect himself that quick, but I'm completely out of chakra now. I can barely stand as it is. Guy said. Sasuke's alive? Naruto asked. Where is he? He never left. Guy said. And he didn't. The smoke finally began to drift away as the wind picked up. As it did, a large purple warrior-like figure covered Sasuke. It was completely skeletal, though it did appear to have a warrior's helmet with two large horns sticking out from each side. Its right hand was covering Sasuke, though you could clearly see through it. It seemed almost like a cloak, but with a mind of its own. The eyes were a dark yellow and the right side held a layer of muscle, whereas the left side was pure bone. I see, said Guy. He had already activated his Mangekyo Sharingan before I even opened the 7th gate. All he had to do was time my shot and he was able to protect himself. I must say it's damn impressive. You are true to your word, Guy-sensei. You're even stronger than Kakashi. Had I not activated Susanoo when I did, you would have surely killed me. TCH, look at this guy. Still calling you sensei even after betraying his village. Kiba taunted. Put down that weak-ass barrier of yours and fight me like a man. He then pointed to him. I have more than a couple of goddamn scores to settle with you. I don't care, replied Sasuke as the hand covering him moved to its side. Regardless, none of you should have made it this far. None of you should have even made it past the front gate. But Kabuto made that mistake of letting you through, and I will have to make up for it. You bastard, yelled Kiba. Kabuto might have been crazy and full of himself, but he was your support. He was helping you. And you talk about him like that? He would have betrayed me. I knew his intentions. He kept his glare fixed on Kiba. Kiba, do you know why Kabuto picked your father of all people to be the final experiment? No. We must have missed that conversation when he was forcing my father to try and kill us. Why don't you tell me? Sasuke scoffed. Still haven't figured it out yet? It's the blood type. It's always been about the blood type. Kabuto kept talking about it, but he never explained it. What's the big deal? Type B is very compatible. Nothing like Sakura's blood catalyst, but very versatile. Very easy to work with. After losing other experiments with different types, we needed to find someone who was both powerful, not of my clan, and carried that particular blood type. Your father was an obvious choice according to Kabuto. Not only because of his blood, but because he had another Kekii Genkai. Mixing in another Kekii Genkai with another testing compatibility, his DNA was difficult to come across since he was burned away by Kakuzu, but Kabuto is resourceful. Kiba's fists were gripped so hard from the anger he had building up, his nails had dug into his skin, causing a small stream of blood to fall from both of his hands. But he didn't feel it, he had much bigger things to think about. That's all it was? He was just a lab rat? Kiba said, gritting his teeth. We needed absolute certainty of the jutsu as well. Because none of the experiments had lived long enough to test out loyalty, he was an ideal choice. He crossed his arms. Kabuto was thrilled to try it. But it had its drawbacks. He still couldn't kill you. There were no drawbacks to that jutsu. Kiba snapped at him. My father was stronger than anything that jutsu could have thrown at him. You made the mistake of thinking he could turn against his own family. Perhaps, Sasuke replied. He held his right hand out as a current of electricity grabbed a hold of his sword, coming through the Susanoo and into his hands. But it makes no difference now. Where Kabuto failed, I'll make up with my own ambition. He pointed his sword to Kiba, his Chidori flowing into the blade, giving it its blue crackling appearance. And after I kill you, you will be next. Fuck you. No one's taking my body, and no one else is going to die because of you and your sick-ass twisted ambition. Arf. Already the clan is rebuilding. He chuckled. And it's all thanks to Sakura. Kiba's anger reached the top at his comment. He could smell everything on Sakura, which turned into a disadvantage for him. His scent trying to mix into his and Sakura's was an insult in the highest standards to his clan. Like mold growing onto food, the smell of rape semen and blood reeked from Sakura. He knew it wasn't her fault, he knew he would never blame her for it. What mattered now was stopping Sasuke. "Kiba, what's he talking about?" Naruto asked. Sakura, hearing all this, moved her knees up and placed her head on them, wrapping her arms around her legs as she pretended to not hear what was being said. Maybe if she tuned it out, the memory would go away faster. She had to try something to get it away from her. "Sasuke!" Naruto yelled, standing up, walking next to Kiba with his eyes closed. "Naruto?" Kiba looked at him confused. "Naruto. Stay out of this," Sasuke said. Naruto's eyes opened, changing from his normal blue to deep red eyes. "No. I'm not going to sit back anymore." Kiba could feel and smell Naruto's chakra flying up. But he knew it wasn't all his. The Nine Tails was fueling his anger. "Why, Sasuke? We were friends, we were a team. All of us." He took a step forward ahead of Kiba. "For years I was the only one who wanted to bring you back. I was the only one who wanted to hear you, thinking maybe I could bring you back and continue our lives." Sasuke scoffed, still covered by the Susanoo. "I even wanted to listen to you after you kidnapped Sakura. But what you did. How could you? I'll never forgive you for this." He yelled as he charged at Sasuke full force. "Naruto, wait," Kiba said, but Naruto was already jumping for a strike. He started running behind Naruto to try to help him. "Akamaru! Watch them!" "Arf!" Naruto approached Sasuke quickly and opened his hand, a shadow clone appearing next to him as it rotated the chakra into his hand. "Rasengan!" he yelled as it punched the attack right into the ribcage of the chakra cloak. The attack connected and it was making slow progress into the Susanoo. Sasuke noticed this and immediately shut an eye, opening it to begin covering that section of the body with the black flames. Naruto was stuck with the attack, still unable to move as he saw the flames moving towards him. "Naruto! Move!" Kiba yelled as he tackled Naruto away from what seemed to be almost the end for him. They both stood away, observing the Susanoo covered completely in Amaterasu at this point. "Don't get touched by that, Naruto. That fire isn't right," he said. Yeah, I know." Sasuke's victory was short-lived as the strain on his eyes began hitting him all at once. He had been recklessly using his Mangekyo Sharingan and using Susanoo for as long as he did, took a substantial amount of chakra and damaged his eyesight more than he realized as the figures of Kiba and Naruto began blurring to the point where their headbands and faces were just a smudge from the short distance. He fell to his knees, covering his eyes. The Susanoo slowly began fading away, the flames along with it, until they were gone completely, leaving only Sasuke there. "My eyes, why now? Why are they doing this now? Chakra gone all of a sudden. Need to get it back," he thought as he felt his body being lifted up by a pair of hands. "Open your damn eyes, bitch," Kiba said, slamming his fist into Sasuke's cheek as he flew to the ground. Kiba ran over to him, picking him up again, and began using Sasuke as a punching bag, contacting into his face, stomach, and anywhere he could inflict damage for a long time. Finally, after minutes of watching Sasuke's seemingly well-deserved torture, Naruto finally decided for himself enough was enough. He ran over to Kiba, who had Sasuke laying down on the jagged rocks that made up as the landscape for the area. "You change nothing by killing me, Kiba. Shut up. You don't know how much good I'm doing this goddamn world by taking someone like you out of it," he said as he leaned himself down and began laying in punch after punch. "You took her from me. You raped her. Why? Was your own selfish fucking wants that important you had to ruin the life of someone I love?" He brought his hand up, extending his claws. "I'm not saving anyone by doing this. And I'm sure as hell not changing anything. I'm not breaking the cycle of hate, and I'm not going to end all conflict like this. But I have a family, a village, friends, people I love. And if killing you means preventing any more hurt, I'd be damned if I did not take the chance to prevent it. He then brought his fingers together, forming a precise formation of his 5 nails as he drove his hand down. Goodbye, Sasuke. And just as his hand was inches from his heart, it stopped. Kiba looked up and saw Naruto holding it. His eyes had returned to his blue color, carrying the look of mercy on his face. Naruto? What the hell are you doing? Kiba, please. Please? Are you seriously asking me to spare him? When you know what he's done? What he's planning on doing? I made a promise to Pervy Sage. What? What are you talking about? When I met Pain, the real one. He was doing what you were going to do now. Kill to bring peace, Naruto. This isn't the same fucking thing. Pain wanted to destroy everything. I'm going to stop Sasuke and nothing more. I'm not a murderer. Not like him. Naruto, Sasuke said. You would pardon me after all I have done and want to do? Naruto nodded. It doesn't matter what's happened. And I may not be able to forgive you, but it isn't my place to decide if you live or die. Perfect. Sasuke thought. Thank you, Naruto. He smirked. A moment later he was gone. What the? Kiba said as he stood up, looking around. A second later Sasuke appeared directly behind Naruto, a crackling light between the two ninja. Thank you for stalling him. Naruto's eyes opened widely as he tried to turn but froze at the impact of Sasuke's Chidori slamming into his back. The burn of the electricity was so intense Naruto's attempt at screaming wasn't even able to process as Sasuke released the surge into Naruto, launching the rest of the chakra in his attack and the young man himself away from Kiba, closer to Guy and the others. His limp body tossed across the rocks before coming to a still halt. Naruto! Kiba called out but couldn't move as Sasuke drove the wooden sheath into his stomach. When he gasped for air, his head was met with a kick, knocking him several feet away. When he regained his balance, Sasuke rushed towards him, which Kiba responded by swinging at him, but Sasuke quickly moved behind him. Kiba turned to kick him but was blocked by Sasuke's arm. His free hand quickly gathering in another charged Chidori as he planted it right into Kiba's chest. He had no time to react as the current of electricity surged through his body, the shrieks escaping from the fight scene over to Sakura's faint ears as she watched from a distance as he was electrocuted. Finally Sasuke released the current and it knocked Kiba several feet away from him onto his back as he laid still, much like Naruto. I'm lucky my chakra returned to me when it did. It takes a lot of energy to suppress the pain in my eyes. He turned and began walking towards where the injured ninja were. I have to cover my tracks. This hideout has been compromised. Guy's body was completely shredded. He could barely move, but in the moment he saw Sasuke approaching, he moved over in front of Lee and Sakura, struggling just to lift his hands up to make a defensive guard. Akamaru snarled at Sasuke as he took to Guy's side, ready to fight as well. Sasuke chuckled and smirked as he came closer. You know you can't do anything, Guy-sensei. I'm amazed you can even stand, much less move a muscle. He walked right in front of him. You're powerless to stop me. I'll save you for last. But his movements were brought to a halt as a high-pitched whirring of wind caught his attention. Sasuke turned around to see Kiba standing, his hands crossed in an X shape just like Guy's were. Still alive, I see. Sasuke said as he faced him with his arms crossed. His Sharingan began picking up a high, increasing level of chakra that he hadn't seen a few minutes before. Guy looked at Kiba with both amazement and shock. That stance. Kiba's going to Kiba, stop. You're not ready yet, we're still working on control. Guy called to him. I'm sorry, sensei, I have no more time to get ready. I died once already protecting the ones I love. And some of them I couldn't even protect, they died anyway. His chakra continued to rise as he focused his eyesight on Sasuke. If it means dying for a second time, then I would gladly give it. Kiba, Sakura weakly said as her and Lee sat back, still injured and exhausted from their different ordeals. I see, but will it really be enough? Lee thought to himself. All right. I've come too far to let him win. To let Naruto, Sakura, my family, everyone down. I can't let him win. His mind traced back to the fondest moments when he first began his journey to claim Sakura his as he prepared for his final stand, / multiple flashback time. Flashback, do you want to grab dinner or something tomorrow? He smiled, scratching the back of his head, nervously awaiting the worst-case scenario. Sakura blushed at the question and the thought of going out with him. I mean, she had to work in the hospital tomorrow and it was an early shift. She smiled, clearing her throat before speaking. Kiba brought his head down. Ah, geez. It's okay. I didn't mean to just pounce on you like that. I'm just real excited about just being promoted and I would love to have dinner with you. Kiba's eyes opened as wide as they could as he picked his head back up to face her. She was smiling. Didn't look like pity either. He could smell it. She was nervous just like he was, but he could smell the truth in her. Akamaru wagged his tail in excitement for the good news, giving a quick bark in response to his master's quick change in facial feature. Oh boy. Kiba said out loud. What? Sakura asked. I was just expecting a big fat no, honestly. He nervously chuckled. Akamaru whining as he now leaned his head down. End flashback, the 8 inner gates formation. First gate of opening open. Nothing had changed in the landscape, but Sasuke could feel Kiba's chakra rising considerably. Kiba felt the lightheadedness of his brain releasing the chakra gate as he felt a rush of power. Such an increase in stamina, speed, strength, but he knew it wasn't enough. Not while Sasuke had an arsenal like this at his disposal. He had to go all the way. Do or die right here, right now. Flashback, I come up here and think sometimes. Me and Akamaru. His gaze still fixed on the sky. From here you feel like you can see everything. Like the Hokages are always watching over us. Sakura was taken back by what he was saying. She had no idea how spiritual he was. Especially since she never thought of it that way. End flashback, second gate of rest open. He could feel his brain release more chakra into his body as it felt almost disconnected. Flashback, well, I tried to make an exact landing in front of your house. He scratched the back of his head. They were literally one door down from her home. But I guess it's the thought that counts, right? He giggled, scratching the back of his head. She smiled back at him. The thought always counts. She took his jacket off and handed it back to him. I guess this is it for right now, huh? Kiba asked. Only for right now. Sakura replied. As she made her way to the door, she unlocked it, and just before she opened it, she felt her arm being grabbed. Sakura Kiba's pull was more than welcomed. Sakura not only gave in, but she approached him. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and before Kiba could so much as echo another word, they kissed. Kiba wasn't even planning on kissing her. He was just going to say goodnight and walk off and consider it mission accomplished. But this feeling. His face, his body, it was on fire. Like someone had just lit him up, but it didn't bother him. He didn't need anything at that point. Forgetting about everything else around him, he brought her in closer as they shared the kiss together. His left arm wrapping around her waist while his right hand gently cupped the back of her head. It was the greatest feeling either of them had experienced. Fast, spontaneous, and most of all real. There was no mistaking for any of their feelings anymore. This kiss. Their kiss. It was love. Sakura finally broke away before she had to gasp for air. Her arms were still wrapped around his neck. Her hands then trailed down his chest before branching to his arms and eventually reaching his hands. Good night, Kiba. She said, sliding her hands onto his before letting go and walking inside and closing the door. Yeah. Kiba knew she couldn't hear him. He didn't care. The shock was better than anything he had ever anticipated for the aftermath. The moment kept replaying over and over. Did it really happen? Did I just? He touched his lips. The scent was very clear. It was hers. And they had very much so just kissed. Kiba quite possibly gave himself the biggest grin as he gave a small wave to the door. Good night, Sakura. End flashback. Noticeable changes were beginning to surface as Kiba's skin began to change to a darker reddish color. He could feel the top of his spinal cord releasing a vast amount of pressure as he activated the next step. Third gate of life open. His hair began to wildly toss itself in the air. Small gusts of wind began to invisibly vortex around him as his energy continued to rise. Flashback, you need to decide what you're going to do. Tsume began. You're in a good spot by the sounds of it, but you need to finish it. Don't wait and fall back into the friend zone. Let me tell you, it's nothing fun. I learned that growing up. But I finally learned to take the step forward when it counted. And I couldn't be happier because of it. Kurenai smiled as she laid back into his shoulder. Asuma's right, Kiba. This way, even if it doesn't work, you at least know. Wouldn't you rather know now instead of spend forever and wonder? Kiba nodded with an enlightened smile on his face. Yeah. You guys are all right. I guess I never thought of it that way. End flashback. Another link on his back released pressure as he allowed his power to continue to grow. The wind that was invisible now became much more clearer to see as smaller rocks and pebbles began flying away from the area. Fourth gate of pain open. Sasuke was started to get nervous. He couldn't touch him while he was charging up like that. But he couldn't turn his back on him either. He could break his charge and attack him while he wasn't looking. He had to wait until he finished. The question was, when would he finish? Flashback, what are we? She knew that question was going to pop up. At least it was then. She wasn't sure either, as a matter of fact. Were they official? Were they a couple? Were they just some dumb kids who thought they knew what love was? I don't know. Was the only response she could give. Kiba furrowed his eyebrows a little bit before thinking of a quick answers. Well, if you don't know, can I tell you what I think? She looked at him. Sure. Kiba cleared his throat. I think at this point we both know we're more than just friends. If not by title, then by feeling. I feel something that I've never felt before. Yet I know how it feels. Isn't that weird? He looked at her, who was now facing him merely inches away from his face. I love you, Sakura. And I think you love me too. She couldn't hold back the red that came over her face. He was right. He was more than right, he was right on the money. She loved him, and the feeling didn't feel wrong or sudden or impractical. Was she ready for this though? Could she handle it? They were both ninjas. Both chunins, as a matter of fact. One day one of them could die in a mission. They could both die. Was that fair? She gathered up as much strength as she could. She inhaled a bit. The only thing not fair is not trying. I do. End flashback. I've come too far to let it all end. I can't. He thought to himself as his abdomen began to release pressure. The fifth gate of closing open. His chakra was flying through graphs in Sasuke's mind as it kept going up and up and up. Guy looked on in shock. He knew what he was going to do. And he knew Kakashi needed to hurry up and get back fast. Flashback, hello Sakura. He looked at Kiba. Hello dog boy. Your aim is terrible. What was that? Kiba picked his kunai up, reversing it, ready to throw it if he needed to. You want to see terrible aim? I'll throw this kunai at the grass and hit your fucking heart if you want to see terrible aim. Kiba. Sakura touched his hand, slowly moving the kunai down. It's okay. Her attention turned to Sai. Why were you watching us? Sai lifted his sketchbook up. I was drawing. Originally I was drawing landscape, but after seeing you two I decided to draw from a distance. Kiba put his knife away. Sai was obviously annoying but not a threat. So are you still drawing? Sakura asked. Not anymore. I'm merely adding color at this point to fill in the lines. Should I add extra red to Dogboy's face? How about I add extra red to your face? Huh, tough guy? Kiba tried to run at Sai before Sakura caught him again. Kiba. Please. She whispered into his ear. That is perfect. Just like I was talking about. Sai gave his smile before taking the sketchbook out and trying to find the right shade of color. Drawing you is simple, dog boy. You require very little color and very little difficulty to draw. He growled. He was going to lose it. You want to see color? I'll show you some goddamn color. He reached for Sai's face, forgetting that Sakura was still holding him. We should probably go. Sai? Yes, ugly? The line in Sakura's head was snipped. Who are you calling ugly? Now the positioning was reversed. Kiba had to keep his furious girlfriend away from ripping her temporary teammate's body to shreds. Much as he'd like to see it happen, he didn't like the idea of visiting his love behind bars. Sakura, it's okay. You know you're not ugly. He tried to reassure her. Bam. That felt good. It did, didn't it? See you tomorrow, Sai. End flashback. I've worked my entire life, becoming the best person I could be for myself. I had to make my own strength. Me and Akamaru. Just us and no one else. And I finally found her, the one to spend my life with. And I'm not going to let you take that from me, Sasuke. He yelled as his stomach lightened, his head rushing in an extreme wave of adrenaline. The sixth gate of joy open. The trees in the area began swaying from the force of the wind being produced from his energy. His headband flew off of his head from the extreme force of the chakra, unable to keep anything on his body steady unless it was zipped onto him. His senses were rising thousands and thousands of times higher. He felt like a god. But he knew gods could never die. Flashback, he'll beat you. Kiba weakly said, forced to use the blade to keep his balance at this point. The Nine Tails? Pain asked. He's got a pretty nasty temper. Especially when you do things like kill a bunch of his friends, break a bunch of houses, stuff like that. And I think I was the one with a short fuse. You are defeated. He calmly stated. I don't know about that, your friends here seem to disagree with you. He slightly chuckled, staggering to keep his balance. Just give up. Pain retorted, drawing a blade from his right sleeve. He felt Naruto with him again. His aura made him know he wasn't alone in this. He now knew what it was like. Pushed to the limits, you can't give up. Not anymore. Once again Kiba heard them both speaking together. You give up on me giving up. End flashback. His hands slowly began to descend, keeping their shape pattern as a small pit began formulating underneath him. The clouds above him had begun shifting, spinning around as if they were going to produce a tornado, but were simply drawn to the jet stream pouring out of him. He could feel a pop below his stomach and his feet felt negative in weight. But he began to feel the strain on him. Radical, intense pain that came over him. Indeed, transmitting this much power took time, and the longer he held out, the worse the pain would become. But at this point he had a feeling it wouldn't make a difference. The seventh gate of shock. Open. The heat radiating from his body began to force his perspiration, turning it immediately to a green-like color which evaporated within seconds of touching his skin. The aura around him was generating more power than even Guy's was. The day began to turn darker, though not night time. Flashback, she looked at him and deeply kissed him, something she had been meaning to do since the moment she saw him. I could never ever love someone like I love you. I'll never let go. End flashback, I'll never let go. Rang through his head over and over again. Your teacher already performed the same trick against me. Sasuke boasted. What do you think you could possibly do with the seventh gate when he could not? Heh. Kiba scoffed. Who said I was stopping at 7? What? Sasuke asked, horrified. Impossible. He's going to? Kiba. Guy called. Stop. You know what will happen. Guy-sensei. You taught me this jutsu in my training with you because you knew there would be a time like you and like Lee we would have to defend our ninja way and those we love. Kiba forced his hands down, his palms faced the sky. And that is what I'm going to do. His energy began surging out, electricity began forming around his green aura as Kiba's hair continued to blow with the wind, looking as if it were to fly off his head at any second. Sakura. He looked off towards her. Her face was absolutely petrified. She knew what he was going to do. To stop Sasuke he had to use everything he had already set himself on it. She couldn't stop him even if she wanted to. I will never let go. He yelled. The lightning around his aura began shooting out of him as he felt it finally happen. His heart had tapped into an incredible speed. Adrenaline pure and simple and constant. He knew this was it. And he knew he had to use this to end him. Final gate. He screamed, the sound of thunder booming around them as the sky turned almost a pure black. The 8th gate, Gate of Death, open. Chapter 31. Sakura tried to yell for him, yelling at him to stop. But as she did, she felt everything deafen around her. The lightning, the booming of the thunder, the sharp pitch of the wind, everything just lost its sound. All that could be heard was a constant low humming as the sounds of the wind and everything else reacting to the opening gate was closed off to sound completely. The opening of the gate was so extreme it was taking in the sound energy from the area and gathering it into him, finally releasing it into a loud wave of pure noise. As if the volume on a television went from 0 to max in an instant. The distance between Kiba and Sasuke was completely cleared of any and all debris, and no trees stood for about half a mile. It was absolute power costing the highest price. Kiba's aura was incredible. It had turned from green while powering up to a dark red cloak of chakra, completely surrounded by wild storms of electricity. He took the first few steps towards Sasuke slowly. As he did, each foot made a large indenture to the surface of the earth. The raw power radiating from him was something never seen before, incomparable by all means. So, Sasuke said. His Susanoo manifested itself again in its large shape, then began condensing itself smaller and smaller until it fitted around Sasuke like a similar aura to Kiba's, only much more sinister looking and in a deep purple suit of armor-like color. That is the Gate of Death. The next few moments were complete silence. Both just stood in a complete stare-off until Sasuke shifted his foot back. After that moment they both vanished out of absolute speed. Akamaru took the time to trot over to Naruto. After sniffing him for a moment, he wagged his tail knowing he was alive, even stepped back as he started to move. Slowly the son of the fourth took in his surroundings. The entire area was completely ruined and a loud pounding sound kept echoing in the area. He scratched his head and looked up to see Akamaru standing there wagging his tail. Akamaru? What happened? Arf. Naruto quickly realized something wasn't right as he stood up and looked over at the 3 injured shinobi, their eyes trying to follow what seemed to be incredible movement, but Naruto couldn't see where they were going. Then in that instant 2 large flashes of light appeared right in front of Naruto. Quickly he covered his eyes, but when he was able to focus he could see a ballistic rush of fists and kicks back and forth between Kiba and Sasuke. The speed of it was something he'd never seen before, and just as quickly as they appeared they vanished again, but the sounds of yells and punches, kicks and the breaking of ground could still be heard popping up in various locations around them. Scene change, Kiba felt like a god. Lighter than air itself, and his strength felt hundreds of times more powerful. When his mind thought of a reflex he immediately carried it out. Sometimes it felt like he wasn't even fighting, that his body was doing everything on its own through pure muscle memory. His stomach would flip whenever he would change from location to location so quickly, like he teleported. He couldn't believe this feeling of power. But he knew it would be gone soon and he had to end the fight even sooner. Sasuke finally saw an opening during their neck-to-neck combat and ducked to throw a punch, only to meet with Kiba's shin blocking it. The reaction was well timed, but Kiba's body was in a sudden rush of extreme pain. He almost screamed, forgetting that despite this extreme surge of power he had flowing into him, he had no pain tolerance anymore at this point. His muscles were slowly disintegrating, and even though he could still freely move, his joints being hit was an absolute no. Despite this, the block was successful and allowed Kiba to use his shin that was guarding to extend his leg, kicking Sasuke's chin and knocking him up. Kiba's extreme speed quickly put him behind Sasuke, roundhouse kicking him in the back. As Sasuke flew off, Kiba was able to get above him and planted his foot into Sasuke's back as he crashed his body into the ground. As the others watched from a distance, the cloud of dirt covered the visibility of the fight, though it appeared Kiba was successful in landing his strike. Before the dust could clear, the loud smacking sounds of punches and kicks, attack yells and grunts were heard again, and the noises scattered once more. How much more either of them could dish out was uncertain, but no one could do anything at this point except watch. And for Sakura her heart was being slowly ripped piece by already delicate piece as she expected the worst to come of this. She refused it, denied it, and even yelled at it in her herd. But she couldn't put the realization away. He might die. For a second time as well. She had already seen him die once. At the hands of pain, and she still had dreams of it to this day. Losing the one you love is almost an unhealed wound at the end of the lives of most people, but twice is pain incomparable. But then the fighting stopped. The fists yells everything. No one could hear anything, and Sakura quickly looked at Lee, who seemed to be focusing on the large cloud of dust still scattering. She looked over to Guy, who was doing the same, breathing very heavily from his most recent fight. She looked over and saw Naruto kneeling on one leg with Akamaru watching as well, and when she finally focused she could see what they were seeing as well. The smoke finally dissipated, revealing the two distinct auras directly touching. The visibility finally became clear and showed the two ninjas standing back to back. Kiba on the right, Sasuke on the left. The purple from Sasuke mixed in with Kiba's red perfectly as the lightning emitting from Kiba's aura complicated the combination of colors. Neither of them chose to move, not entirely for the sake of they didn't know where to strike, but because of their own ailments they were beginning to suffer. Sasuke's eyes were beginning to worsen, he could feel it and see it ironically. The Susanoo armor he had created took even more chakra than the Susanoo itself. It was at the point where unless something was directly in his face it had a strong blur to it. He knew after this fight he would have to take Itachi's eyes. This fight with Kiba was going to all but drain him of his sense of sight. Details, texture would all be pointless to describe to his eyes now. Kiba's bones were beginning to become the only support he had in his body. The feeling of knowing your muscles are falling apart was a sinking feeling. Like snakes crawling in your skin, he could feel his muscles falling off the bone. Movement was beginning to start to hurt now. Before it was nothing. His mind reacted and his body moved with lightning-fast speed. But now his joints were beginning to tighten. Fighting at the speed he was before would be hard. The stillness allowed him to finally take a close listen to his heart. The sound was frightening enough as it was a loud machine gun beat pumped from his chest. He could feel the left side of his brain become heavy again, concluding the first gate had closed and his power was cutting down. Guy-sensei. Sakura spoke up. What's happening? They're at a standstill, Sakura. Sasuke's eyes are all but useless now. And Kiba's beginning to go through the closing process of the 8 gates. The closing process? Her and Lee both asked. The 8th gate doesn't end like all the others where it just fades off. Each gate closes individually from the very first to the very last. And the very reason for that is because the last gate is located on the heart. He sighed. That is why it is fatal. His heart is pumping faster than ever before. When you slow down your heart that drastically from that type of speed, it's almost always fatal. Your heart shuts off completely. Sakura's eyes began to water as she glanced over at Kiba from the distance. Their chakra was still through the roof and the fierceness of each ninja was astounding, almost beautiful if it were painted. But the pain Kiba had to be going through, you did it for me, all of this, you did all of this for me, she thought to herself, not noticing the small stream of tears that had successfully forced themselves off onto her face. So tell me. Sasuke said in a normal tone, breaking the silence between the two back-to-back ninja. What will you do when this is all over with? For several moments the crackling of electricity was the only response Sasuke was given. Then Kiba finally spoke up. I don't plan to do anything if I survive this. He began. I'm not like Naruto. Yeah, I want peace and I don't want war or death or anything like that. But him and I are two different people. I can't break the cycle of hate and I can't bring peace without violence. I'm just another flawed human like everybody else. I see. Sasuke replied. And you will act on your emotions as you see fit? No. No, it isn't my emotions. Well, maybe some of it is. He said. And despite everything you have done to me, to Sakura, it's nothing compared to what you can do to everyone else. He sighed. I'm not a saint and I'm not a hero. I'm not anything. I'm just Kiba Inuzuka. He then finally took the risk of being attacked from behind and beginning walking forward, breaking their odd stance. He then stopped after a few steps. But I've also had a lot of growing up to do in the past few years. I never said goodbye to one of my senseis. I watched my best friends die right in front of me. I died and I left the woman I love in grief I thought would be impossible to heal. He then turned around to face Sasuke, who was already facing him, though he did not move from his previous location. I had to find out the hard way my father wasn't a coward and he was murdered. I was powerless to stop my fiancé and son from being kidnapped and had to travel across the world to find them. I couldn't stop her from being raped. I had to fight my father and I had to kill him. And now, he pointed at Sasuke, I'm face to face with the man responsible for the most recent turn of events. And you will kill me because you hate me for what I have done. Sasuke glared at him. Your loss is nothing compared to mine. No, it isn't, Kiba said. And even though you have ravaged the life of someone I love, I can't let you go on to do it to others. I already died once, and if I have to die again to stop you from doing it, then I'll do it again. Sasuke unsheathed his sword, gripping it tightly as he bent his leg back, stretching the other forward. He held his sword in both his hands, retracting the sword to the side of his head to form his stance. I see, he said. But you, like everyone else before, is standing in my way. I'll be sure to not destroy your body. I need it to pick up where Kabuto left off. Kiba smirked. Still on that, huh? I don't get it. Why are they smirking at each other like that? Sakura asked out loud to herself. It is a warrior's dialect. Even against an enemy of such great power and someone you hate so much, there is still respect amongst them. Lee answered. It made no sense to Sakura, not in the slightest. But she figured it was the only sort of explanation that seemed logical at the time, so she took it and continued to watch them. As long as I live, I will do everything in my power to bring the village down for what it has done. My clan was wronged so many times in the past, and then that. My brother Itachi used as a double agent because he was torn. And you serve a village like that. You were gone when this happened, but I had lost my temper with the village too. Akamaru had a disease. It was infecting him, turning him completely feral. It got to the point where the Hokage took him away from me, saying they needed him locked up until they could find a cure. And even if they did, it wasn't a for sure thing Akamaru would live. You tell me this because you think you can compare to what I have been through? No, but you don't realize a village isn't perfect. Some flaws might be bigger than the others, and the elders may have been wrong to make Itachi do what he did, but they're human just like us. And they make the same mistakes just like us. And just between you and me, it's getting hard just to move now. I'm just stalling at this point. It hurts to even breathe at this point. He chuckled. But I know you're hurting too, aren't you? I know, I can smell it on you. A loud clap of thunder filled the skies, followed by a heavy shower of rain falling over them, soaking them in an instant. Even the minuscule weight of the raindrops began to irritate Kiba's body. His tolerance of pain had dropped so low, even with all the power still flowing through him, he only felt the strength to fight where he stood, moving slightly only if absolutely necessary. Sasuke said nothing, but he knew he was right. The raindrops were heard only, not seen. He couldn't even tell they were falling if it wasn't for the fact they were touching him and the noise of them touching the ground. Slowly he felt the weight of the Susanoo armor lift off of him, completely taking the aura away, and his Mangekyo returned to just the standard Sharingan. He watched as the red cloak of chakra around Kiba dissipated as well, though some sparks of electricity would still shoot up from random areas of his body. All he could see was the outline and very few color in between it all. Kiba reached into his pocket and pulled out a kunai, holding it in an offensive stance. The second gate had already closed on him while they were talking, and he could feel a heavy weight returning towards his back. He knew he had to finish this now, or else he wouldn't be able to do anything. In a flash they charged at each other and began their dance of blades. Sasuke's eyes struggling to focus his vision to block the small kunai, though the Sharingan was able to track it still, while Kiba forced his body to cooperate with the pain as his reflexes in dodging and countering were just as quick as before, though neither shinobi were able to land a direct hit onto each other. Constant clanking blades were the only noises being heard aside from the thunderstorm and precipitation carrying overhead. Finally Kiba saw an opening. Got you. He grabbed Sasuke's wrist with his left, thrusting his right, which was holding his kunai straight towards his chest, only to have his arm countered by a kick from Sasuke, knocking his kunai out of his hand. The pain was excruciating, but he didn't let it show, merely registered it mentally. He added a strong flick to his other hand, knocking Sasuke's sword out of his hand, leaving them both weaponless now. Kiba was unsure when his desperation took over, but it did overcome him as he landed a knee into Sasuke's stomach, afterwards slamming his other leg to his head, knocking him back as the Uchiha struggled to regain his balance. Sasuke quickly rushed back towards him and swung straight at Kiba's face. The Inuzuka's heavy and weakening by the second body took the blow to the face, knocking him back slightly, but he held his ground as he spat the blood out of his mouth, throwing another punch and connecting into Sasuke's cheek. The cycle of punches was painful even to watch. They weren't even trying to dodge or block anymore. It was a straight battle of fists and who could last longer. Although Kiba's attacks were much stronger than Sasuke's, Sasuke knew the effects of the 8 gates were beginning to wear on him, and the extra sensitivity gave him an edge if nothing else. Sasuke began to throw a punch, but he couldn't send it off as Kiba slammed his head into Sasuke's face, staggering him back, and he tripped, falling on his back into the now wet and muddy ground below him. Kiba rushed at him, jumping up and slamming his fist into the ground, only to catch the mud below his feet as Sasuke rolled out of the way just in time. He had no time to counter Sasuke's attack as the Uchiha delivered a kick to Kiba's leg, immediately bringing him to his knees as he shouted out in pain, gripping it as the sky water continued to pelt them both. Kiba reacted by throwing his arm into Sasuke's face, tossing him back a couple of feet, giving him a small break to comfort his leg. Damn it, can't move. Why do I have all this fucking power when I can't even move a muscle? He desperately thought to himself as Sasuke staggered to get up. When he finally did, he lowered his hand, charging his Chidori in a desperate attack as he ran straight towards him, his Sharingan locking straight onto him. I have to make this count. I'm almost out of chakra. Sasuke thought to himself as he got closer. Kiba could only pick himself up as he timed his fist correctly, colliding it into where Sasuke's Chidori was being concentrated as they both hit a standstill, their fists at chest height. It was in that moment Sasuke released his control of the attack, unable to control it any longer as the surging of the electricity ran through both Kiba and himself. The current was powerful and immersing both shinobi into a stream of pain, though they both held their fists together in a lock, refusing to give either room to overtake the other. The strange situation made the two even almost. Sasuke's eyesight was deteriorating and his chakra was running on fumes. His strength was lacking and his fatigue was beginning to get the best of him. Kiba, on the other hand, had an enormous amount of chakra despite the third gate closing on his back. His energy was still hundreds of times greater than Sasuke's, though he couldn't muster up the strength to move like he did at the beginning. His muscles ripping to shreds every second gave him such a low tolerance for pain that even the weakest things like a punch from Sasuke and even the rain was painful for him. The surge of electricity and the added conduction from the water made it almost unbearable, only kept going by his willpower to not give up. Finally breaking through, Kiba slammed his head into Sasuke again, shorting out the electric current and knocking him back. I'm not giving up, he said, holding his right hand out, opening it. The pain through his body caused his entire frame to tremble, even his hand was shaking. Not when I have so much to live for. They need me, all of them do. Slowly he began to focus all of his available chakra into one last attack while he still could. He had never pulled it off before, only practiced the steps that Naruto showed him while they were setting off a few days ago. That short time ago felt so much longer, as did everything else leading up to this point. This fight felt like it was going on for hours, though he knew it had only been 10-20 minutes at most. Rotation. He began to channel his chakra into a sphere, setting up a mental fence around the tips of his fingers to keep the chakra within its cage as the blue began to appear. Power. He then began to deepen the chakra, creating a darker color as the sphere began to spin faster. And control. Finally combining the two successfully as he held his finished product in his hand as the rain continued to fall. Okay, it looks right. I gotta make sure this hits him. I might have a lot of chakra left, but my body can't keep this up and my time is pretty low to begin with. He then forced himself to begin his last rush towards the near blinded Sasuke, bring his arm back. Sasuke could only see Kiba's blurry figure running towards him but noticed at the last minute the small blue ball of chakra in his hands. He stepped back again but panicked as he noticed behind him he was at the edge of a cliff and it was a long way down. He then glanced back at Kiba as a cold shiver ran down his spine. No, he knows it? Kiba yelled as he connected the attack. The force of the attack pushed them both several feet forward as they both flew over the edge of the cliff, Sasuke being propelled several feet away from Kiba as the attack pushed him forward. Sengen. As he finished his cry, both shinobi began their fall off the cliff towards the bottom, each several feet away from each other as Kiba fell in a slower, calmer style while Sasuke violently plummeted down in a spiral motion due to the rotation of the attack spinning him. And the battlefield was deathly still at that moment. Rain continued to fall. Naruto and Akamaru stared in silence as a distant sound of puddles rippling were heard, following by a frantic Sakura rushing past them towards where the edge was. Kiba! She yelled, a clap of thunder following her cry as she fell to her knees peering over the edge. The sky was too dark for her to see anything. She had no idea how far of a drop it was. All she knew was Kiba was there just a moment ago and now he was gone. Don't do this to me again, she said as her face soaked itself within her tears, which were hidden from within the heavy rainfall. She felt the cold hands behind her and she turned immediately, embracing the one doing so without even looking. Naruto held her close as he looked over the end of the cliff, focusing his chakra as his eyes slowly tinted with orange around them. Sakura, he said. I can still feel their chakra. They're not dead. She looked up at him in surprise, but she knew he was telling the truth. Him being in sage mode gave him that ability to sense chakra all around them, which reassured her that he was alive, but was uneasy knowing Sasuke still was as well. Arf. What's up, Akamaru? Naruto said, letting go of Sakura, and looked at the soaked dog. Arf. Arf. He responded as he walked off, turning around to face them. You want us to go with you? Naruto asked. Akamaru nodded his head as he quickly took off towards a shortcut in the woods he was following through his sense of smell alone. Naruto began following Akamaru but was stopped at a tug on his arm. Sakura? Let me go with him. You need to stay with Lee and Guy-sensei in case help shows up. Naruto nodded. Right. Sakura, good luck. She nodded as her response as she quickly followed Akamaru, hoping the Nin dog could find his way towards his master. And that they wouldn't be too late. Scene change, the river below at the bottom of the cliff remained quiet and serene. There was a small waterfall no more than 20 feet high streaming down while the greenery around the river covered the sky above. Slowly Kiba pulled himself out of the bank of the river, laying himself down as he picked up a fast pace of breathing. He had survived the fall by landing directly into the river, though he had to question how deep it was for him to not shoot to the bottom and crack his skull. Luckily the current was weak, so he had enough time to pull himself out, which is something someone as weak and beaten as Kiba needed. He felt the fourth gate close on him during his fall and could feel the sting of the fifth closing on him as well. He picked his head up from the ground and wiped his hand over it, removing the mud and leaves from his hair and face. He looked around the area quickly and took a sniff for Sasuke's scent. He laid on his back to congratulate himself as he realized his scent was nowhere to be found. I did it. He sighed. I actually did it, and before the gates wore off, nice save, Kiba. He said to himself as he faced the sky, happily accepting the pelts of rain hitting his face. The only question is, where am I now? His nose immediately reacted, causing Kiba's instincts to make him start to rise up, only to be stopped by a cold and piercing blade as it entered his stomach, proceeding into the ground as well, pinning him. Horrified, Kiba lifted his head up slowly as he noticed who was in front of him. Sasuke, still alive and merely a foot away from him. His purple belt had since fallen off and his short gray shirt was ripped along the right side, being all but completely taken off. He held his stomach as he breathed heavily. How did you? I told you. Nothing will stop me from achieving total revenge against the village. He said as he gave a hard cough, wiping the blood that came out onto his robes. But you're your sword. I knocked it out of your hands. You didn't see me while I fell. Flashback, Sasuke, using the little chakra he still had in store, focused his Chidori into a small string of lightning as it shot back up the cliff, using the rain as a current to keep it powerful and extend its length. Finally he felt it grab onto a solid as he retracted it, catching his sword as he guided it into its sheath and held it as he continued to fall. I can't survive this fall. I need to. His thoughts were interrupted as he passed by the side of a large waterfall, then suddenly stopped. Sasuke quickly looked around and saw what had saved him. A strong branch caught his shirt as it ripped part of it, but essentially saved him from the instant death he would have faced otherwise. End flashback. Sasuke stared down at Kiba, his eyes finally in their original color, showing his little amount of chakra at this point. 10 years ago my entire clan was massacred. Uchiha was a family name erased from the rosters of the village. He said as he limped over to Kiba, pulling the sword out of him as the Inuzuka grunted in pain as a small stream of blood poured out from the top. And the whole world just fucking watched. Sasuke pulled his sword up, closing his eyes as he focused the absolute last amount of chakra he had and forced it into his sword, creating his Chidori blade. Our forsaken death will not happen again. When the smoke clears, Uchiha will be a name to be feared and respected once again. He smirked, opening his eyes and staring straight down at Kiba. And it all starts with you. Kiba weighed a ton. His muscles were completely shredded and he knew he couldn't move. The sword quickly rushed down to him as he felt his life flash before his eyes. And then it stopped. The piercing sound of a sword cutting through flesh and exiting was heard, but he looked up and saw it wasn't him who was cut. Sasuke's face appeared horrified and shocked as he saw in the corner of his eye 2 large pointed ears, and a thick brown and black coat was visible. He felt the full mouth of teeth invading his throat as the sharp set tore into his throat and interrupted his flow of oxygen. Kiba's eyes quickly registered the creature in front of him. The large and thin body, the peg leg, the look of the German shepherd. Tomomaru, he said out loud. The dog felt the piercing of the sword cut through the side of its shoulders and out the other side. Sasuke lost control of his ability again, dropping the sword to the ground as the weight of the dog was too heavy to be supported from its position as he ripped his throat clean out of his neck. Sasuke's mouth was wide open in horror as he felt the inability to breathe, terrifying as he stepped back in reaction, falling backwards onto the ground as he gasped for air only for it to fly away in the moment. His eyes watered as his realization of death quickly came to him, trying to cover his throat in a futile attempt to cover his wound. Finally his body ceased his squirming as his eyes remained open and his mouth in just as much shock as he laid still dead. No, not you too, Kiba said as he struggled to move himself, only being able to turn himself at a 90-degree angle, though it was close enough for him to be face to face with the partner of his father. The dog laid there slowly wagging his tail. Good fight, lad. I barely had to do anything. Kiba winced in pain, forgetting the stab wound in his stomach as the still fresh wound was irritated by the mud he was laying on. I must be a pretty lousy ninja if all my friends keep dying on me. You couldn't have taken that boy yourself. How did you find me? Forget who I am, Kiba? I'm an old bastard, but I'm your father's hound. All I had to do was follow that smell you and him possess. Lucky I came when I did. Kiba stared at the old dog for a moment. He knew he wasn't going to make it, he also knew he wasn't going to either. But he had to at least try and give him a reason to stay. You can't go yet. And why not? I'm tired of living anyway. I eat, I sleep, I can barely walk, I can barely see. Twiggy gets on my nerves, and it never was quite the same since your father passed. The dog gave a faint smile as he leaned his face closer to Kiba's, giving him a small lick on his nose. Death will be good, fa me boy. Tomomaru, you're a good boy, Kiba. Just like your father, do me a favor and live for me, will ya? He said as his tail finally set down into the wet ground and his eyes closed for the last time. Kiba's eyes watered up as he was able to force his arm to cooperate into touching the dead dog's face, stroking his soaked fur. He felt his stomach tighten immensely as he twitched. The next gate had closed on him. I don't know if I can do that for you, he said as he slowly fell into unconsciousness. Kiba. His heart kept registering. He could slowly make out the sounds of it. One was a girl, the barking of a dog came soon after. Sakura? Scene change, Kiba sat cross-legged in his room. He was back in his mom's house. He looked at himself, no injuries, and he was wearing his black outfit he wore before he took to wearing the shinobi attire. He looked back up to see his mother Sakura and Shino standing there with Akamaru in the front of them. "Why are you sitting there, pup? Get up. Your friends have been waiting for you," Tsume said to him. "Arf. Having trouble there, Kiba?" Shino asked. "Oh, he's just lazy," Sakura said. "Hey guys, come on, it's not funny. I can't get up, I don't know why." Tsume shook her head as she let her hand down towards him. "Come on." Shino offered his hand as well. "You need to get up," he said with a brief smirk striking his face. Sakura finally offered her hand as well. "Come on, lazy," she said, giggling. Kiba chuckled. "All right. I'll try."
Thank you for your views, likes, subscriptions, and overall support of my ongoing efforts to bring great content to all of you. Check out my Patreon for more mature fanfiction. The link is in the description and like everywhere on my channel.